I really worried to one of the teams. I reviewed their presentation and see what they did with it.
Lots to change in a very short period of time.
Not in
Question for you.
not in her work. Their pitch. Their pitch was feel good.
Like have it like the little morning and evening too.
I chair the advisory.
So it's like, unless you want to stay for the whole period. Half of them got it. They really got it.
Yeah.
The other half, they were asking smart sounding questions. Wasn't really directed at the core issues of course.
So there was on Tuesday there were I would say 50-50 outstanding and
It's not serious. I remember
you guys for the class.
All the exactly. This is the message.
I think there's like some
Understand the core concepts of it. And
that was scary.
they did check it out. They don't have a future.
Yeah, like I am.
Oh, sorry?
I would advise them not to come.
Oh my god. Especially if the criminal is near you. Oh my god.
You and I both know it takes a special kind of crazy.
Yeah.
All right, welcome everybody to the Nuvention Energy final presentations. We've got some great guests tonight. We have a guest speaker and we have each team presenting hopefully for exactly 10 minutes, right? So hopefully you've kind of narrowed your slide deck down. I don't want to see 20 slide decks because we just don't have the time. We're going to follow this sequence here on the board. We're going to have basically a guest from a company called Vortex Energy Group. His name is Jim Venetta. He's the CEO of Vortex Energy. I think I put a link in the announcement on Canvas, so you probably have a little bit of a background. But I'm going to ask Jim to say a few words about his company, maybe some opportunities for projects or jobs or what have you. And then we'll go to Jim Murphy. Jim Murphy is the COO of Invenergy. He's probably given this talk, I don't know how many times, at least 3 or 4 times in the past. Jim's one of probably the most popular speakers we have because he's at the forefront of clean tech energy, grid scale, implementation, project-based work around the world. I mean, it's just famous for what they're doing, amazing work, rapidly growing company, Chicago-based. So you can't beat any of those things. But I'm going to turn it over to Jim Venetta first and have him spend a few minutes just talking about his company. Again, his company is Vortex Energy Group.
Okay. Come up there, I guess, or?
Yeah, sure. Come up here. That's fine.
First of all, I want to say thanks to Mark and others to inviting us up here, getting a chance to meet some of you. Also give us a chance to kind of tell you a little bit about what we're doing. When I say that we're not doing rocket science, it's actually that. Very, very simple stuff. Several years back, there was a product that General Electric invented, and it was a thermal vortex technology. Basically, it was a cylinder on the side with a 90 mile per hour, 2,000 degree vortex, tornado inside, that burned up waste material. Now, back in the late 60s, early 70s, it was a monster size system. It wasn't as efficient as what we've been able to make it. Over the years, I've actually taken on the project from the original inventor and basically downsized it, cut it in half, pretty much. But even cutting it in half, we can actually process twice as much waste material as we did before. Pretty much what we're doing, and again, it's very simple. I don't want to bore you with technology because you guys probably understand everything, but we bring in shredded waste material or chipped, like in would be biomass. We feed it into the vortex unit, and it's introduced to that 90 mile per hour, 2,000 degree tornado. The waste material burns in full suspension inside there, so it never rests on a grate, doesn't smolder. So we pretty much we can achieve complete combustion. There's arguments about complete and perfect, complete and imperfect, and so forth, but basically it does a great job. So as we're pretty much processing this material inside the system, there's 2 stages. The first stage is the destruction of the waste material. The second stage is very similar to like an exhaust scrubber or fumes burner. because we reprocess some of the gases that might have some residual ash material, and that gets recycled inside the system over and over and over again. We have no harmful emissions. We can actually burn shredded tires, and we don't even produce smoke, because that's what you find with incomplete combustion. So again, it's very simple in the concept of technology, no moving parts on the inside, but by bringing this amount of volume into it, we can process up to 8 tons of garbage on a full system per hour, or 4 tons per garbage on a smaller system. The smaller system, which we've got in several projects we're getting ready to start, can actually produce enough superheated exhaust to go into the waste heat boilers that goes into the steam turbines. We can produce 6 megawatts of power. So we can do all of that in a building about 15,000 square feet. So it's not what normally people think of a power plant. We're a very small, it looks like a General Steel building, and you can put all this processing in there. The other nice thing is we can do all types of waste material. We do municipal solid waste, we do medical waste, we do waste coal. They used to call it dirty coal. We were told by the coal industry, don't call it that anymore. It's the stuff at the bottom of the mines. They're sitting around all throughout the Midwest and towards the east, and these mines aren't being finished off because it's not profitable. You can't bring up that material and use it for basically aquarium, filters and so forth. Well, we have the process where they bring it up, process it on site, and produce electricity, which basically brings the revenue back in for them. Again, all kinds of different things. Woody biomass. We're doing some sargasso. We were just talking about that down in like the Caribbean, which is a real mess and a real threat. So we have these very simple solutions for massive problems. The beauty of it is we handle 2 things. We handle the climate and we handle energy. And actually we do a third, which is economics. We can do waste to energy like it's never been done before. One of the things is that people always hate the idea of combustion. In California, we can't even use the word combustion. You can't say burn because they'll shut you down. And it's like, okay, how do we sell a car wash if we can't say water or soap? So we kind of deal with it. We have these cute little terms we use out in California. The main thing is, though, is that we burn everything inside these systems. We don't produce any harmful emissions. We do it at a fraction of the cost of typical systems. A 6 megawatts producing plant using municipal solid waste or whatever different waste material they're using will see a return on investment in less than 18 months. That's unbelievable. When you look at solar and wind, you're looking at what, 25 years in some cases. I was talking with Mark yesterday, and we were talking about one of the problems with the wind turbines. And I came up 65, and I love driving past Purdue and seeing all the thousands of these things going. But the problem is, after a short time, when they are taken apart, you get these big, like ivory tusk, graveyards of these things that you cannot do anything with them. You can't bury them. You can't do anything with them. They also leak a tremendous amount of oil, so that's not very environmentally friendly. There was a solar array in Nebraska. 14,000 solar panels were destroyed by a hailstorm. That was 4 years into the project. And that represented about 5.2 megawatts of power for them. They've lost it. So little things like that, it's not a problem. If we get a hailstorm, it's going to hit the roof. We can get that replaced. So again, there's a lot of things that are very attractive about this. If you're looking at some locations, if you're talking about power going down on the grid, we can handle that. We can also handle mobile applications, which makes it real fun. So again, we have a lot of different variety of things, a variety of waste materials we can use, clean, renewable, sustainable energy. And we do it, like I said, while helping with the environment. So,
all right, sounds good. 10 minutes was perfect.
Was it okay? I've got cards here for everybody if they want to take a look at it.
Okay, thank you.
What happens to the greenhouse gases that are produced during combustion?
Well, actually, we don't produce any of those. We produce, we have N2, O2, H2O, and CO2. We're considered by the EPA as a low emitter for CO2. We're about 6%. So we can actually capture that. That's one of the programs we're going to look at is the CSS, which it doesn't make any sense because there's 10 times more regulations on carbon dioxide than carbon monoxide. And nobody's ever died from both. So I don't see the thing. But the other funny thing, we can pull it off and then spray it over a greenhouse. That makes sense. So.
Okay, so in terms of location,
have you considered Africa as one of your beachhead? Because
Yes.
I'm from Ghana, and then we have huge clumps of like rubbish, which is like powder,
Everywhere.
and it directly fits into what you are doing. I don't know if you need to reprocess the waste, but if you have to deal with the waste as it is, it's a lot of waste, a lot of flow for you to.
Right, right. Let me just answer that real quick, and we can kind of do some things afterwards. We have a group, it's part of our company, it's called Banana Worldwide Global Outreach, where we're going to be going through developing countries all around the world. But our first focus is in Africa. My doctor's actually from South Africa, and she has a couple of 501c3s, and we're going to be going down and doing some things. We already have a connection with the World Bank, so we're going to go in and use our own company for humanitarian aid, work with the World Bank and try to find ways of creating some of that energy. There's areas down there, we've even had friends in Nigeria that have never seen electricity other than from a diesel generator. And this is a lot less expensive. So, thanks for the question.
All right, thank you. Nice job. We're trying to carve out some time, so if you want to meet with Jim, perhaps during a break, you can get one of his cards and ask him some questions. Jim Murphy, President and co-founder of Invenergy. Invenergy is Chicago-based, globally focused, grid scale, sustainable energy projects that I think will impress you quite a bit. Jim, I'll let you take it from here. I don't have a clicker, but you can use the arrow.
Is it good for me to stand here? Can you see me okay if I stand here? Is that right? Okay, because I just need to be able to see the screen and click through it. It actually helps me because I can see what I'm doing.
Got it, okay.
All right.
Down. How's that?
Thanks, Mark. It's good to be back here, and it's good to see all of you and the advisors. Is this being recorded? Also?
Yeah, is that okay?
Fine.
Okay.
Good to know. Disclaimers. So I really wanted to talk about two things here. I'm going to give you just the history of our company, Invenergy, just tell you a little bit about who we are, why we were founded, what we're doing these days. And then I'm going to talk about the energy transition. It'll be a US focused discussion because that's where most of our business is, and that's where probably I have the most knowledge base. But we are active globally. We have some applications I could talk about, afterward or on the break or whatever. But let's keep it to the US when I talk about energy transition. So we actually were founded in 2001. Invenergy, as Mark said, we're based here in Chicago. In 2022, actually on our 21st anniversary, because we couldn't do it on the 20th because of COVID, we celebrated, but now a 22-year-old company, we celebrated passing this milestone of having completed development of 30 gigawatts of power projects. This is what we do and who we are. We were founded in 2001 with a small team of 5. So when you talk about startups, we were a startup. We really started from nothing, with a team of 5 and no assets in 2001. Now we have, 200 projects that we've developed, 2,500 employees. Mainly what we are is a developer, owner, and operator of utility scale power generation projects. We have a pretty broad footprint. We're in wind, solar, storage, and natural gas as fuel sources for what we're doing. And we're in a number of geographies. We're actually active in about a dozen countries, but some of that is because of the third-party operations and maintenance business we have, which is more widespread worldwide, and the development and ownership of assets is more concentrated. I'll talk about the countries. Recently, and maybe in the last 4 years, let's say, we've branched out a little bit into some adjacencies that make sense for us given the expertise we have in the company. We have strong engineering capability, we have project management, we have finance, we have development, we have origination, and some of these other areas made sense for us to diversify into. So now we're active in offshore wind, which comes with it a number of challenges that I think you've probably read about recently. I can talk about that. We're doing a number of transmission lines, high voltage direct current in the US and one in South America. We've gotten into manufacturing in the solar space. I'll give an example of that. We did in 2000, we actually completed construction in 2022 of an LNG to power facility in El Salvador, of all places. It was a unique opportunity that presented itself to us. we felt like we had the engineering expertise to take it on. And so this is a, LNG coming into a floating storage and regasification unit, bringing the gas onshore, regasifying and generating power in a power plant. We also did a 44-mile transmission line to connect that facility to the Central American grid. So it was a very ambitious project, but it's up and running and operating well since May of 22. And then, as I said, we have a third-party operations and maintenance business. From early on in our history as a company, we felt that we wanted to operate all of our own assets. We did not want the equipment manufacturers to be operating for us because, they were doing what we would call operating to the contract, doing just enough to not incur any penalties under the contract, but not really optimizing the asset the way an owner would. So we bring that owner's mentality. We operate our own, and we're able to do that for third parties as well. And we pitch to them our owner's mentality. We sell them on our willingness to go all out to deliver maximum availability of the resource. And it's going quite well and in a number of countries. We also have a community solar business called Reactivate, which is based in Chicago. And we just closed on our first 7 projects of 2 megawatts or more, but community solar projects where we're bringing the whole energy transition to low and moderate income communities. And then we have Energized Capital, which, did you have John Tuff this year? No. So we have Energized Capital, which is a venture capital and growth capital business that we are focusing on the digital applications that will affect the energy transition. And we did that because we wanted to get an early look at where the technology changes were going to occur, what the software was going to be that was going to drive this business. Renewable energy is a very technology-driven business, and it was important for us to get a window into that. And so we put together a venture fund. We're an investor. We brought third parties into that investment, and we're now on our 3rd venture fund, and we have 2 growth funds within Energized Capital. One of the keys to everything we do as Invenergy is we've coveted our position as a privately owned company. We feel that going public, taking the bait, it feels good. It seems like a great way to have ready access to capital, but it brings so much sort of confusion and chaos to the system. It creates opportunities for people to take actions which are driven by short-term incentives rather than long-term value creation. You know the story. We've really tried very hard to stay private, but we've needed a lot of capital in this business. So we went to private sources. We have CDPQ, which is the Quebec pension fund management company, Blackstone, big private equity through their Blackstone Infrastructure Partners core fund. They're a big investor in Invenergy. And then InfraBridge is backing us in our thermal assets. InfraBridge is a subsidiary of DigitalBridge, which is a big private equity in telecom space. By the way, as I'm going through this, if I'm going too slow or if you have questions, stop me anytime, okay? This is a bit of an eye chart, but a history of the company, from the beginning in 2001 when we were founded until today. What's not here is the story really goes back about 2 decades before this. There's a man named Michael Polsky, who is our CEO and founder of Invenergy. In the 70s, he emigrated from Ukraine to the US. He worked for a number of different engineering firms. He's an engineer, mechanical engineer. And in 1978, there was a law passed called the Public Utility Regulatory Policy Act. Did you talk about that in the class?
No.
This was really the first time that an opportunity presented for independent power producers to be active in the US market for privately owned, not utility owned power facilities. That's because of that act and some of the additional legislation that followed that. But when Michael saw that, he thought to himself, hey, maybe I can do this myself. And he branched out and he went away from working for consulting firms and started his own business in like 85. It was called Invenergy. He exited that business in 1991 And in 1993, I was working in investment banking, working on power projects, real estate, other, big infrastructure assets. And he and I got together and we started this company called Skygen Energy. And we sold that in 2000. We were basically doing gas-fired power projects, natural gas-fired cogeneration, combined cycle and peaking plants. That was a very heyday, I guess I would say, for that type of business in the US market. And we got very close with General Electric Company as our basic equipment supplier for the business. And those relationships you're going to see were very important to this business. Anyway, the business built a lot of value. And in 2000, we sold it. And then we went out and started another one, which is this company, Invenergy, in 2001. So, you can see a few things that are highlighted there along the way. We bought a gas plant. Our first actual facility that we did was not a organic development project, which almost all of the rest are, but to jumpstart the business, we acquired an asset from a company that we knew from the business from before, the Hardy Power Plant in Florida, which we still own and operate. In 2004, we brought our first wind farm online. We thought we were very late to the game in wind power production. We were wrong. We were very early to the game, but it seemed at the time. But the reason we got into it, back to GE, was they were our major equipment supplier in the prior company. They had just bought the Enron wind business, which before Enron was called Zond. And they bought the Enron wind business, and we were in conversations with them. And they said, you guys are experienced developers. If you can do combined cycle plants, we think you can do wind projects. And they were right. And we quickly, went from a newcomer in the wind business to number 2, in the U.S. market in wind. And so we've had a great run here. And when I show you the stats on how much of our portfolio was wind, you'll see that how that proved out. But we went into Europe in 2005 and brought a project online in Poland in 2006. We've done other projects in UK. Fast forward to 2012, that's when we brought our first solar project. Solar was a little later in the game. We weren't so sure about solar early on when we were doing wind. There was plenty of work to be done in wind, but our customers wanted wind and solar, and so we got into solar as well. And now we're, again, number 2 in the market in solar. And then I talked about third-party operations. That was the other call out I wanted to put on this chart. This gives you a feel, this is, countries that we're active in the world. You can see, the biggest concentration is in the US. These are not all of our projects. This is just a representative sample of some of the kind of milestone projects. Over on the left, you can see we went into Japan in 2011 after the Fukushima disaster because Japan was very keen to develop renewable energy in country. We now have 3 operating solar projects there, and we have 3 wind projects as well. One is operating, 2 are in construction. Down in El Salvador, the Energía del Pacifico project is the one I talked about, LNG to power. Down in Uruguay, we have a wind farm, a solar facility, and we have a transmission line that we own and operate. In the US, we've done a number of very big projects. An interesting one is this Grand Ridge Energy Center that you see on the top left there, very close to home here. When people come to visit us, we often take them to Grand Ridge because in that facility, we have a wind farm, we have a solar facility, we have energy storage and batteries there. We have a technology center where we're doing some experimentation on different solar technologies. And then just down the road from Grand Ridge in Dixon, Illinois, we have a combined cycle power plant called Nelson. And at that plant, we're doing a hydrogen pilot. So I don't know if you take field trips, but if anyone is interested, we could send you on a field trip and show you all of this. We often do those kind of tours. Let me keep moving so I don't bog down here. So this is the split between the wind, solar, storage, and thermal projects that we have developed successfully, 32 gigawatts at this point. We've raised a lot of money in the business, $55 billion between project financing and corporate financing. All of our projects we project finance. And so what that does is it brings a real discipline to the business because getting the bankers and the tax investors and the equity investors interested in investing in these projects, you really have to know what you're doing. You really have to convince them and all of their army of consultants and lawyers that the project is properly structured, that the contracts hang together, that you've mitigated all of the risk for an extended period of time. Jim mentioned solar projects might take 30 years to get your return on. So you have to tell a story of I've got long-term contracts, I've got everything pulled together so that the investors can earn the proper return on the project. Oh, just back here in the bottom right, it says not shown transmission, 1,600 linear miles. So with every power project, renewable power project that we've developed, we've had to connect them to the grid. And many of those have had long gen ties to connect them to the grid. Many, as many as 50, 100-mile gen ties. So we learned the transmission business. And when we look at the opportunity in the US today, the build out, the energy transition and the build out of renewable energy is not going to happen without a significant buildup of long distance transmission. Everybody knows this. There's a saying, without transmission, no transition. I mean, it's really true. And, we're participating in a big way in transmission. We have 4 projects underway today that are long distance HVDC projects, one in New York that brings power from upstate New York down into New York City. That one is the most advanced. We're going to be starting construction hopefully next year on that one. In the middle of the country, you can see in this area, from southwestern Kansas through the Oklahoma Panhandle into northeastern New Mexico and in the Panhandle of Texas, some of the best wind and solar resources in the country. And we've got 3 lines emanating from that area to different parts of the country, where they're short on renewable resources. So we want to connect, the load to the resource, and that's what we're doing here. And in fact, we're looking at an opportunity. You can see where these 3 lines originate sort of on a line here. Could we connect these? And if we could connect those, this line runs to this Four Corners area, which can take you to the West Coast. This line runs over to the PJM interconnection, can take you to the East Coast. So we could be kind of coast to coast if we can bring that all together. That's sort of the long-term aspiration. There's a lot of permitting ahead of us in that sort of thing, but this is what we're pursuing as a company because we understand what it's going to take, to get to the kind of numbers that were envisioned in the IRA, in the US, and it isn't going to happen without projects like this. So let me use that as a transition to talk about the IRA. You've talked about the IRA quite a bit in the class, I'm sure. So to talk about the IRA and what we're seeing in the business, I just want to get my water. What we're seeing in the business today in terms of both tailwinds and headwinds, and it really is, I was talking to Tim when I was walking in, it really is a story of tailwinds and headwinds right now. I mean, it's it's been a real roller coaster for us. Right now, maybe we're seeing more headwinds than tailwinds, but we really believe in the long-term story here. And I'm just going to go through some of what's affecting the business right now. So on the tailwind side, of course, it all sort of started, with the global effort to reduce carbon emissions, the Paris Climate Accord, the U.S. commitment, through the nationally determined contribution in 2020 when President Biden took office to try to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 50% or more by 2030, which isn't going to happen, but it was a bold, ambitious statement to make. And then, we have the Biden administration with their other objectives of 100% carbon-free electricity by 2035, net zero emission economy by 2050, and 30 gigawatts of offshore wind by 2030. So big ambitions, big drivers of what could be opportunity in this market. So that's sort of where we start. Then in August of 2022, we got the Inflation Reduction Act. Just before that, we got the Infrastructure Act, which was helpful to the business as well. But this was really the big one, the Inflation Reduction Act, $370 billion of incentives. The incentive regime in the United States, has always been a tortured regime. It's always been not the most logical way to incentivize clean energy production. A carbon tax would make so much more sense, but a carbon tax is not politically feasible in this country. And so the way it's been done, since we got into the business in 2002, has been through tax credits. What the Inflation Reduction Act did was codify those tax credits, give us a long runway, 10 years plus of tax credits that we could rely on, to do business in an area where you need a number of years to develop and build projects. So you need to have that policy certainty. And this was the first time we saw some real policy certainty in the US with this 10-year runway. It still is a tax credit regime, but it's what we have. And so it's what we're basing, a lot of our projects around. There were some really interesting features in this bill, in addition to getting 10 years. So when I say 10 years, that means we have 10 years to put projects into service. And when they go into service, they're either going to get an investment tax credit on the front end, or they're going to get 10 years of a production tax credit after they go into service. So it's really a kind of a 20-year proposition we're looking at here. They also, in this bill, we had PTCs and ITCs for wind and solar, but they introduced a ITC for standalone storage projects, battery energy storage systems, which we didn't have before. You could only get an ITC on storage if you paired it with solar, and it was always tricky on how you did that. They introduced credits for transmission for domestic manufacturing. This is an interesting one, and I'm going to talk about this in another slide, but this was a big part of the Inflation Reduction Act, which was trying to jumpstart a domestic manufacturing business in the renewable energy space. And then there's a incentive for clean hydrogen. To get these credits, to get the full value of these credits, you need to demonstrate that you have the proper apprenticeship programs and you're paying prevailing wages in the construction of your facilities. Most people are going to be able to do this without much problem, but this is a requirement. And then the IRA added, in addition to the production tax credit, which is $27 per megawatt hour ish, and the investment tax credit, 30% investment tax credit, you could get bonuses. So you could get up to a 20% bonus if you had the adequate amount of domestic content in your facility. That's a 10% bonus. And then another bonus if you are located in what is deemed to be an energy community, a community where maybe there was a fossil fuel facility that shut down, or people employed in mining who lost their jobs. The census proved that you were in an energy community, then you could get this additional 10% credit. There's also, when we see this in our community solar business, the ability to get an additional 20% credit if you're in a low and moderate income community, as defined by the census. So there's a lot of goodies in the act. There's a lot of tax credits available if you properly structure. Just pause for a second. I know you covered a lot of this ground.
Your projects pencil out without the credits? I assume they do, right? Because the cost of sustainable energy, clean energy, is so much lower than it has ever been. Right?
No, the projects don't pencil out without the credits. Why? Because the customer wants the lowest cost. And to get the customer the lowest cost, you've got to get the credit. Okay. And if you don't have the credit, someone else will bid with the credit.
Right. Well, I mean, I guess I should have said, if the credits didn't exist, these projects would still exist.
If these credits didn't exist, the cost would be higher. I think that we've always maintained that, if we're serious about carbon reduction, if we're serious about the energy transmission, there's a lot of room in the system for customers to pay more for renewable energy. Prices had gotten by 2020 extremely low, where credits potentially were not needed.
Okay.
But since then, prices have gone up significantly. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. And the credits, came sort of just in time. Yeah. Right.
There's good alignment between the credits and your business.
Yeah.
Very good alignment.
This is Wood Mackenzie consulting firm, their view on what the IRA could do, for the grid in terms of capacity and energy production in the power space. You can see in the top chart, we're roughly 80-20 renewable energy and other forms of energy. That includes nuclear and the all other, by the way. Nuclear has has found a home in the clean energy space now. Now, when people talk about renewables, they also talk about nuclear in the same breath. So it's interesting how we embrace nuclear, but it's 80-20 renewables and all other today. By 2033, Wood Mackenzie is projecting that if Inflation Reduction Act does its job, we could be more to a 50-50 split on a capacity basis. But because renewables are intermittent and you're not going to get the same level of production on an energy basis, we're only at 60-40 by 2030 on energy, on power production. But look at the trend here. I mean, look at the new installs that they're predicting, could be, 42 gigawatts a year, in the front end going up to almost 80 gigawatts a year, and this is on a system, that today is only a little bit over 1,000 gigawatts. So you're almost doubling the system with all this growth. So I want to talk a little bit about this manufacturing tax credit. It was a really important part of the Inflation Reduction Act. It was important because the Biden administration was committed to creating opportunity, for sort of re-energizing the manufacturing base in the United States, and saw clean energy as a place to do that. So they offered some very attractive credits for manufacturing, particularly in solar and battery storage systems. You can see some of the numbers at the bottom, just to give you a sense of it. If you look at a PV module facility, and you're going to be producing, crystalline polysilicon modules in the U.S. To do that today and to be competitive with your pricing without this credit, you can't do it. With this credit, it's a pretty good business. This credit really puts you on a par with, what's being done out of China, what the prices are in China. I can talk about that a little bit more, but the credits were set at a level where it became an attractive thing to go after. I don't think they did a very good job of how they spread it between the different components of the supply chain. I think they went too heavy on modules and not heavy enough upstream. And you're going to see that maybe next. Yeah, this is a chart that the American Clean Power Association produces. If you go on their website, this is an interactive chart. They're updating it all the time. It's new announced manufacturing facilities in the US as a result of the IRA and the tax credits. And you can see they're popping up everywhere, right? I mean, people are going after this, but most of what you see for solar and all of those dots for solar is module manufacturing. There's very little upstream. There's some solar cells being announced, solar cell manufacturing being announced, but most of it is module. But there's wind for onshore and offshore going in, and battery storage systems on the manufacturing side. This kind of tells the story as well. I mean, if you look at what's been announced, this is really just reducing that prior page into another chart. But the dotted line going across, call it 61 gigawatts, kind of an average of what we're expecting would be the new additions of solar potentially as a result of the IRA in the United States. And so this is a look at, if you look at these announced production facilities, will we really have a domestic solar supply chain or not? And it looks like arguably we will be making modules in the US to serve all of our needs. We could even potentially become an export market for solar. Now, again, the light green here is just announced. How many of these are actually going to get done? Who knows? But some of them will get done. And I think on the module side, we can get up to, a level at which we can produce, enough to supply what's needed in the US. Cells, wafers, ingots, and polysilicon going up the supply chain? I don't think so. And here's why. Modules, you can permit and build a module manufacturing facility maybe a year and a half. Cell facility, maybe two and a half. Wafer ingot polysilicon, to get that permitted, to get the right location, to get the right resources you need to do that, to have the labor force, and you're looking at 3 or 4 years. These credits started in 2023. These advanced manufacturing tax credits started in 2023. They run for 10 years and that's it, they're done. So by the time you get some of this upstream help, there's not going to be credits available and the thing is not going to pencil anymore. So unless if the government wants to extend the credit regime in some way, it's going to be a lot harder. So what does that mean? It means the downstream end of the supply chain arguably will be here, but upstream is still going to come from overseas, and most of that is going to be Southeast Asia. I mentioned that we had gotten into the manufacturing business. Why did we do it? I mean, it's pretty far afield for a developer of renewable energy systems to now want to be a manufacturer. But we wanted to control our own destiny. We wanted to make sure that we had adequate supply of solar panels for all the facilities that we were developing, because we were running into so many headwinds with getting panels into the country from Southeast Asia, which is where they come from. I mean, there's very little currently domestic manufacturing capability here. So we entered into a joint venture with a Chinese company who had the technology. We're the majority owner. We own the building, we own the land, we own the majority interest in the joint venture, but they're bringing the technology and we're learning how to do this. We're sort of reversing the trend of technology going offshore. It's going back onshore. And we're excited about this. We've got 2 lines installed in this facility already. We're going to have 8 lines in total. We're going to manufacture 5 gigawatts of panels in this facility. And the first panels are going to roll off in January. So that could be another fun field trip if you wanted to come see this. This is in a town called Pataskala in Ohio, which is sort of on the eastern edge of the Columbus metro area. But it was a very good facility for us. The building had already been built, but was a shell. And we had good power supply, we had good permitting, we had good local support. And that's why we located it there. Also a good central location for moving panels to where we're building. Okay, so those are some good news stories. That's some exciting stuff. Now I'm going to talk about some of the challenges that we have. And again, if I'm getting short on time, stop me. And if you have questions, stop me. This is the big one, really, from my perspective. The business has changed quite a bit. When we first started doing wind projects in 2004, if you wanted to build a wind project in West Texas, you could go from having the idea to having turbines spinning in about 18 months. Okay, very easy to permit. The equipment was easy to get. If you had to have a little bit of transmission, you didn't have a lot of NIMBYism to worry about. It was a pretty quick turnaround. And even, through about 2018, 2019, we were still doing wind projects in maybe, 2 years, 3 years, solar, pretty much the same. But things really changed when we, went into the COVID world and we started to see supply chain problems and we started to see politicization. I have a hardest time with that word. I don't know why. Politicization of the renewable energy industry. If you're into renewable energy, that's a liberal cause. That's a blue cause. You're building in my red state. I don't like it. It's bad by definition. And so we started to see some organized local opposition. It's really gotten to be a science. Localized opposition has gotten to be a science. And there are some forces out there coming into communities and organizing people and creating roadblocks to development, trying to change zoning ordinances, trying to change permitting regimes. So we run into that all the time. It's very rare now that we don't have someone protesting our permit in some way when we get a permit to site a renewable energy facility. The interconnection queues are way backed up. There is as much renewable energy in the interconnection queues, on a megawatt basis as there is built in the grid today. I mean, the whole grid, could be replicated by the amount of renewable energy that's in the queues right now. So that it takes quite a while to get through the queue process, something like 5 years, across most of them on average. I mentioned permitting. Permitting is getting harder and harder, whether it's wildlife issues, noise issues, site issues. It's become increasingly difficult to get through all of the permits and have to go through challenges to those permits. And then maybe the sleeper here, but the latest troublesome area is equipment lead times. So whether you're talking about turbines or solar panels or breakers or transformers or cable, the lead times on these things has gotten extremely long. There's a lot of development going on in the US, but most of these markets are worldwide markets for the supply of these components. And so we're competing on a world stage. Europe is going crazy with renewable energy development, transmission lines, offshore wind. They're consuming a lot of the supply. They have government-owned utilities, who can put down huge deposits and tie up positions with manufacturers that we can't replicate as a privately owned company operating in the US. So we're seeing, in some cases, lead times of 4 or 5 years to get some of these
5 minutes.
to get some of these components. So this has changed the business dramatically, because what we need to do now is we need to take a tremendous amount more risk in developing projects. We need to make commitments. We need to put capital down well ahead of the time that we maybe even have a contract to sell the output from the facility, before we have a permit for the facility. And we have to be ready to build it. So we need to have, this stuff, locked up, and that costs a lot of capital. I mentioned before transmission and what we're trying to do in transmission, but maybe just to throw a quote at you, the Department of Energy recently released a study where they said by 2035, we need to more than double the existing regional transmission capacity and expand the interregional transmission capacity by more than 5-fold. Doing interregional transmission is very, very difficult, because the powers that be that control transmission in the US market are regional by nature. They have a region that they're responsible for. They want the planning to occur in their region for their region. And if you talk to them about going interregional, which creates a lot of benefits to the broader system, and everybody acknowledges that, but they don't care because it doesn't affect them, and they don't want to get into that. So we're probably going to need legislation or FERC action to promote interregional transmission solutions. And there's some activity there. Here's a look at what we ran into with the extended timelines for development, with the extended timelines for getting equipment into the country, with the freight backups with COVID and everything. We were enjoying, levelized cost of energy, of course, is the sort of average power price you need from a renewable energy facility to recover your costs and your return on capital over a time period, 20, 30, 40 years. The levelized cost of energy, went down, like a rock for wind and solar until about 2020. And everyone was enjoying the beauty of that, because, we were bidding projects, we were selling projects, and the prices were always great, because by the time we built them, the costs were down. Now we're in an opposite. Now we're bidding them and we're finding our costs are up. And so you see that big inflection between 2020 and 2023, where wind went from $30 a megawatt hour to now we're seeing a lot of $60 a megawatt hour. And it's taking customers some time to adjust to that price shock. They're going to get there, they're going to adjust to it, but some of them may sit out for a while and wait for prices to come off. And the longer term projections that most of the experts are giving us that are reflected in this graph here do show prices coming off, after this sort of hiccup period, but we need to ride that out. Cost of capital has gone up, as everyone knows, tremendously. I mean, we were very, very fortunate that over the last 10 years, as we were building our business, money was almost free. I mean, we're looking at close to zero, interest rates. Now, we have real, long-term interest rates that are really making a difference in the cost of debt and equity capital, and we have to price that into our product, and our customers have to understand that and accept that in what they're going to pay. And that big inflection in the cost of money is a big part of the story also on the increase in the customer price there. I'm probably not going to go too much into these trade issues. I talked about them last year when I was here. I talked about some of the issues that were making it difficult for us to get solar panels into the country without much domestic manufacturing. We need to import our solar panels for our solar projects. Batteries need to be imported because we don't have the manufacturing here. But it got very difficult because of some trade protectionism, tariffs that were put into place. There was a anti-dumping and countervailing duties action that said that, hey, look, this is the solar supply chain starting from the quartz all the way to the module. They said, what's happening right now is that the Chinese companies are actually they're moving enough of their supply chain out of China and into Southeast Asia so that they're not having to pay these anti-dumping or countervailing duty tariffs. And an action was initiated by a US panel manufacturer saying that, they're not really doing that cell manufacturing, that module manufacturing. That's not really manufacturing. They're just, putting some finishing touches on things. The real manufacturing is further upstream. And the result of this, long story short, was the Department of Commerce determined that if you're going all the way back to the wafer, if the wafer is being made outside of whatever country is deemed as problematic, which really means China in this example, wafer forward is outside of China, then your supply chain is exempt from these duties. And that's where it's going. That's what you're going to see is massive amount of wafer, cell, and module manufacturing outside of China. So I'm really close to the end mark. The last one that I was going to talk about here was the good news story. I mentioned a lot of tailwinds here. There are headwinds as well, but on the balance, we're still very, very excited about our business. We're excited about the opportunity. This is going to happen. The energy transition is happening. I probably don't have to convince you guys. Part of the reason you're here is because you believe it's going to happen. We have enough behind us, enough ambition here. We have customers who want it. We have ESG standards that are driving it. It's going to happen. It's a question of how many bumps are going to be in the road, how long it's going to take. There will be some casualties, but there's going to be a lot of winners too. So thank you for listening. And with that, I'll
Any questions for Jim?
yes.
When I had was that when we were financing through EPC companies and when cost of modules went up, then there was huge pressure on the margins because there were some projects who were in pipeline for which they have already bid, and now suddenly the module prices went up. So they went into huge losses kind of a thing, and few companies went bankrupt. So any thoughts on that? What happened in that space? Because I think in China, the cost of modules went up, and we could see this in India that the bidding went way up. It was at its lowest in 2020, but now again it's going up. So did you also face a kind of challenges, or how do you manage them?
Yeah, I really didn't. It's a little hard to hear up here. I really didn't catch the entire thing. Did you?
So I guess what's the story behind the module price increase?
Yeah, once module prices go up and whole project has a duration of say 18 months or 24 months, and you have already bid for a project, and now that modules has gone up and you have already contracted and you can't pass through. So how do you
absorb the increased costs?
You go to your customer and you beg for a change. That's the reality of it.
And it gets granted?
Sometimes.
All right.
Yeah. I mean, if they want it, I mean, we're not hiding anything. We're telling them the real situation we're facing. Everyone is facing it. It's not that they're going to find another supplier who isn't facing the same cost profile.
So in my project management class, we covered change orders and how do you work with customers on change orders. And this is a classic example of that. Other questions?
Yes. Is there, apart from grid scale battery storage, do you have any other chemical led storage, let us say hydrogen or ammonia in the mix of the power storage to flatten the intermittency of the renewables?
Yeah, we're not doing any other storage in any scale right now. We are looking at hydrogen. Everybody in the business is looking at hydrogen. There's not a lot of hydrogen really happening at scale. So, these tax credits in the IRA are going to help jumpstart renewable hydrogen, but we're doing some experimentation, and we got a pilot, like I mentioned, in Illinois, but we're not doing projects.
As the industry whole?
The industry is going hard at it. Yeah, Europe is going hard at it. Some of our competitors in the US are going hard at it. Although one other thing that I didn't mention, I guess, in the headwind section, is when the IRA was issued, there was a lot of how is it going to be implemented questions. And the Treasury Department was supposed to come out with all this guidance within like 6 months of when the IRA was issued. Well, we're still waiting for the guidance. Some has come, but much still hasn't come. So a lot of the guidance, including all of the hydrogen guidance, has not been issued. So we don't know how it's going to work.
Jim, how much of an influencer are you on these policies?
I would say significant. We participate in the national trade associations. I'm actually on the board of American Clean Power. We participate in the Solar Energy Association. We're active in DC. We have a team in DC working the Hill. I mean, we really need to, this is a policy-driven business. It's an important part of our.
So you have, of your 2,200 employees, X% is not engineering, not project managing, it is regulatory management.
Yeah, it's government affairs, regulatory affairs, public relations, that sort of thing. Yeah, we probably have 50, 60 people in that area in the company.
Yeah, significant, because it is a significant component of your risk.
It is. Yeah, good point.
So you have 30 plus gigawatts installed. What's your backlog in terms of your future commitments, I guess, or projects in the pipeline?
Yeah, we have a pipeline that everybody measures pipeline differently. Some people are, prone to exaggeration on their pipeline. We define pipeline as, we have a site, we've secured the land, we're maybe in the queue process to get an interconnection position. That puts it into the queue. We have 100 gigawatts in our pipeline.
Wow.
It's not all going to get built. But we have a lot of opportunity.
So for a company that's 19 years old,
yeah,
if I remember right, 22 years old, right, and 30 gigawatts, you've got triple that in your backlog. Wow, that's amazing. Yeah. There was a question back there.
Yeah. So with these elongated or development timelines, what's your best and most effective strategy with dealing with construction cost escalation?
Yeah, when the whole industry got bit by costs going up, customers suddenly changed the way they were contracting. Up until that point, everything was fixed price, and the developer took all the risk. When the developers started hitting the customers with change orders, customers started getting real about putting indexes into the pricing. So we were able to pass through commodity cost changes, inflation rate changes, interest rate changes. That's starting to peter out a little bit now as that cost increase is starting to level out, and now customers are starting to look for fixed pricing again. But they are willing to put in on certain components, like steel prices or copper, aluminum. We're able to have pass-throughs or index adjustments for that stuff.
What's the split between like utility off-takers and private off-takers for your business?
Yeah, it's interesting. On the wind side of our business, it's almost all utilities. And what we offer utilities is we can build it, own it, sell it to you under a PPA, or we can build it and transfer to you. They love that build transfer model because they want to own assets and put them in the rate base. And they love wind because everybody's doing solar, not everybody's doing wind. We're able to do a lot of wind with utility customers. On the solar side, it's mainly commercial industrial customers.
Did you operate those assets when you do an off-take agreement?
We do. Yeah. Yes.
We are talking about a lot of incentives and policies which are helping these projects. But how easy is it to get this money from the government? Like, do you face bottlenecks, or what is the typical timeline from application to actually receiving the money? Because that will hugely affect your cash flow.
Yeah, so most of these incentives that I'm talking about are tax credits. So it's not like getting grant money where we have to apply for it to get it. We're going to file a tax return and we're going to claim the credit and we're going to pay lower taxes. Or we're going to bring someone in as an owner of our project who's going to be able to access those tax credits. IRA introduced two new features. For most of the tax credits, they introduced a transferability provision where you can actually sell those credits. Rather than have someone come in and be an owner of your project to get the credit, you can sell it to a third party. And there's a market evolving for transfer of tax credits. The other thing they introduced was direct pay. So that is more like a grant. That's, in lieu of taking the credit on the tax return, you can have the government make a cash payment to you. But the direct pay is only available to non-tax paying entities like municipalities and it's available for the manufacturing tax credits, but not for the regular production and investment tax credits for wind and solar and battery.
How robust do you think those IRA incentives are against future governments? Like I remember, for example, Spain had lots of incentives, and then in retrospect, they declared them as illegal, and then all these projects failed.
Yeah, and I talked about the American Clean Power Association, and when we sit around the board table, that's all we talk about. IRA defense, how we're going to make sure that people get attacked. It is a concern. It is a concern. If the Republican Party took all three, the House, the Senate, the presidency in 2024, we think there will be attempts to peel it back. Wholesale, I don't think so. There's too many projects with too many benefits in too many red states. And we think there'll be enough resistance from members of the party to do something wholesale to repeal IRA, but they may nibble around the edges in certain aspects.
All right, one last question.
You've been asked.
How do you see your storage business and like how much competition do you anticipate in coming 5 years?
Yeah, the storage business is an interesting one because it's the least evolved and sort of the most kind of wildcat business, that we're in. A lot of people went into ERCOT in Texas and did merchant storage projects because they saw this big energy arbitrage opportunity, and it paid off for them because they got in early enough. But now that energy arbitrage is not very predictable or reliable. So I think the players are going to rationalize. There's going to be consolidation, and projects are going to need to be contracted. Most of what we're doing in storage, we're getting capacity payments in effect, for putting the facilities in place.
So I know a lot of people are going to ask questions about job opportunities, internships, things like that. I mean, a lot of folks are interested in working for a great company like Invenergy. Any comments about your hiring plans for the next year?
Yeah, I mean, we've been hiring like crazy for 3 years. We've grown probably 100% in the last 3 years as far as the size of the company. I think it's moderating a little bit. There's still a lot of opportunity. We offer a very robust internship program with the company, and we're hiring a lot of people. I will say we don't have as many entry-level positions as what we had before. We've really kind of filled that out, and we're looking for middle management there right now. But there'll always be opportunity with the company.
All right. Thank you, Jim. Great job. So Jeff, I don't know what time the food's supposed to arrive.
It's going to arrive. They're going to start setting up at 7:30, but everything's intended to be on the table. So bites and drinks after everyone actually does their
I know people are going to want to spend some time with Jim before he leaves. You're going to be around a little bit while, right, Jim? You're not going to be leaving soon?
I'm going to stick around for a bit.
Okay, sounds good. Why don't we at least have one team presentation before we try to take our break? So if team, I guess that would be Team E-Mobility could get up here. We will let you share your screen. And while you set up, I do want to acknowledge some of the advisors we've had all quarter long, working with us, some of whom we've already seen before. Eric Burkers, thank you for showing up tonight. It's appreciated. Sure, I'm sure you want to say anything? No? Well, as always, you are the stalwart, right? Usually, you're actually the Nuvention medical instructor. Yeah. So you're here to cross-pollinate ideas and maybe share some feedback from the student team.
Mostly learn from you guys. Yeah.
Thank you, Ed, for coming. I appreciate it. All right, did I miss anybody? I don't think I missed, right? We are going to take a team or group photograph right before we lose these folks. So especially before we lose Jim. So okay.
Yeah, enjoy.
Each team has 10 minutes, so we're going to police it pretty carefully. We'll give you some warnings along the way. You're going to warn them?
Yeah, I mean, I guess.
Okay, Vignac's going to give a warning. Oh, that's the old-fashioned warning.
Yeah.
None of the online warnings. Okay, it works. And while e-mobility gets set up, evolution, you should start thinking about making sure you're ready to go and make sure you're on. Everyone who's going to be presenting has got to be on the Zoom session. So e-mobility, 10 minutes? Take it away.
So hello, good evening, everyone. We are EV Mobility. Myself, Nandish Bhatia, I'm MS in Mechanical Engineering here at Northwestern. This is my friend Anup here. He's an MBA from Kellogg. There's Sue, he's doing an MS in Engineering Design Innovation. Aurangzeb, MS in Biotechnology. Pranav, MS in Engineering Management. And that's me. So here's an agenda for today. We are going to look at the problem statement, our opportunity, vision, our market sizing, competitive analysis, and economics. So when we think about EVs, what are the biggest problems that have come to our mind? Range anxiety is one. Charging infrastructure is one. Charging time is another. But if you look at it, about 50% of EV owners living in apartments and condos do not have access to home charging. Public charging infrastructure is lagging. Surprisingly, even in a state like California, there are about 1 charging outlet for 12.6 EVs available even in California. Public charging infrastructure, if available, may not be available to you. You may have to book it in advance. It may not be available at the time of your convenience. But if you book it, you still may face a problem because about 1 in 5 EV public charging stations may not work. So where do you go? That's why you need us. We are a EV mobile charging service company, wherein you have a truck coming to your place with a small battery, assigns the battery to the car, goes away to the next car, comes back when it's done, collects it. It's easy for you, it's convenient for you, and it's convenient for us as well. So, why do we choose this market? Well, this is a market that is supposed to grow at one of the highest rates in the next 7 years to come, currently valued at close to $3 billion with a CAGR of 29.1% till the year 2030. Next. So our current target market can be close to $856 million with 1.7 million electric vehicles here in the US. And with a CAGR of 7.3%, it can grow up to $2.6 billion in the next few years. And on the next slide, we'll see our total serviceable target market is not necessarily the entire US. We can target only the top 5 states with the highest number of EVs and the highest number of EV adoption. And that brings it to close to $423 million as of today, and expected to grow to $1.3 billion in 2030. We expect to capture at least 10% of the market, so that makes it about $129 million by 2030. So this is a visual representation of our market sizing or how it looks like. But is that why we are here today? Are we looking to be a charging company? Well, yes and no. Charging is going to be a very important segment for us. But over the years, we also plan to gain consumer data through our application and get into different segmentations like battery insurance, battery financing, analytics, and charging becomes just one part of it. So we'll be a data company with data on all things EV, and charging is one aspect of it. In the olden times, 100 years ago, empires were built based on oil and steel, the Rockefellers and Carnegies of the world. Today, empires are built on data, the Googles and Metas of the world. So that is what we are looking to do. And how do we get there? What are our plans for now? And what is our value proposition? Coming up next.
So for the value proposition, we summarize 4 key points based on over 50 interviews in this course, and that's what we are providing as a solution to the problem. The first one is convenience. Our service is super convenient because we bring the service to our customers. They can save their time from driving and waiting to get charged. Also, we are also we provide flexible service. We offer a variety of different charging option to meet different demands in different situations. Also, we are competitive because we provide competitive price compared to our competitors and the traditional EV charging stations. Lastly, we are eco-friendly companies because we promote EV ownership and construction of EV infrastructure. For the market segmentation, we focus on 5 key segments of the market. The first one is the home charging. The home charging is for EV owners with no charging station in the home. Second, we collaborate with large corporations with huge employees, which means they have huge demand on charging. We also do fleet charging for Uber, FedEx, UPS, and we provide charging during mass events such as sports events and concerts. Lastly, we will also do net metering, which means we charge at night and feed back during the day.
So before we introduce our final solution, what we do and our focus is a mobile EV charging service. So we deliver to you through truck or fleets, and we do on-demand charging. And we're gonna do a quick run through of what we provide as a service. So we're gonna be a mobile app. We provide 3 key features. You can easily call EV charging on the spot. Users can easily make charging reservations scheduled. They can make payments quickly and safely with e-mobility. So this is the easy sign-in page, and the users are gonna get 3 plans, which is free, but $60 for a one-time emergency plan. And there are 2 premium plans where we provide more discount and more offerings to them. This is the main page that we're gonna get as a user. You can see your car model here, and there's the menu here. So you see the battery on the first slide. When you go to the next, this is when the on-demand charging happens. So you can see it being charged, the time, hour that's remaining, the total distance that you can run. And when you want to schedule a reservation for, tomorrow in your company, you can easily schedule it through this tab, where you can select the date, arrival time, and the charging duration. It's as easy as that. And last feature that we're providing is the charging stations that you guys can find in the nearby venue or sports place or restaurant. So if I'm trying to get a reservation at a restaurant, I can easily find that, and so that there's unlimited access of charging. Now we're gonna go back to the presentation.
Yeah, coming to the techno-economics of e-mobility, we are comparing our service against 2 existing services for the EV charging market. That is the fixed EV charging offered by Tesla, Electrify America, and other service providers. And the other one is the home EV charging, where you install chargers in your home. So on the left side, we're only comparing the charging prices. If you compare on the charging prices, obviously we are more expensive, but we have factored in a few other costs. And on the right side, you can see after factoring in the costs, we are more competitive compared to fixed EV charging, because we have factored in a few costs such as the driving cost, reservation cost, and the lost time cost. That is the cost the customer faces when he goes and charges his vehicle and waits there for charging to complete. And if you look at the cost per mile, we are costing around 14.2 cents per mile, which is cheaper than the gas car, and in certain cases cheaper than the fixed EV charging. So compared to competitive analysis, we have 2 main competitors. One is the fixed EV charging network, and the other one is the mobile EV charging network. So there are 2 providers right now. One is Spark Charge and AAA. AAA is offering mobile EV charging using diesel generators, which is not very eco-friendly. And compared to Spark Charge is our main competitor, which is offering mobile EV charging using battery banks. Where we feel we are competitive is because we use second life batteries, so we significantly save on cost. And we offer multiple on-demand services such as emergency charging, rental options, and battery financing. Through our business model, we have figured out that we can significantly reduce our costs over 5 years due to economies of scale, and we're also planning on leveraging AI to efficiently use battery and reduce costs in the future. Yeah.
So I'm skipping the revenue part. So main revenue streams are already being discussed earlier, which is the subscription-based model and then one-time charging use. And then net metering is just 6% of the total business because we don't want to rely that much on that part of it. But fleet charging, corporate tie-ups, and subscription will be the main revenue in the first and second year. And over time, we'll move to data analytics. In future, we also want to get involved in battery analytics and battery financing. Coming on to the numbers, so we will break even in year 2.5, and in a 7-year period, we will be at an IRR of 21%. And we are assuming a market size, initially market share from 2%, and we'll go up to 6% in 7 years in 2 cities. Next. Okay, so now come the unit economics, which is a great question. That one, we are doing a trip, how many charges we need to do. So we came to a number of 2.3 after doing all manpower and other calculations, which means that if a person is doing 4-hour tour, in that he has to minimum charge 2.3 batteries, then we will do profit, otherwise we'll be in a loss. So in one day, if we are employing a person for 8 hours and he's taking that round in the mornings and evenings the way we want to optimize it, he has to do minimum 5 battery charges, which we feel is achievable in a long run. And if we place the node at a good location, then we can easily achieve it. And now comes the ask. So to run a prototype, we are planning to deploy 5 mini trucks with 5 units of 5 batteries each. And using those costs, including the feasibility testing, which is for mobile app development and market research, we need $1.5 million. And the breakup is given. We can give you more details if you have. But with this, we can actually test the prototype and actually come to know whether we can go to phase 2. But this is for the prototyping phase. So yeah, that's it. We're in time, but happy to take any questions.
All right, thank you for keeping it on time. Are there any questions?
Yeah, sure.
So you identified 3 markets, right? Consumer, fleet, corporate tie-up. In your interviews, who had the greatest pain? What's the segment, right, that you feel would adapt the fastest and really pay the premium price?
One, especially the people who don't have the home chargings in their condos, they are the ones who are like, yeah, we are ready to pay but they are not ready to pay extreme prices. But that's why we have priced it at between 40 to 50. So people are happy to pay somewhere around 40 to 50 twice a month to get the charge. And in our subscription model, we are giving 2 charges for $60, which leads to $30 for 1 charge, which people are happy to pay. Yeah, sure.
So I saw the battery banks. So if you add extra batteries, are you able to have different tiers for faster charging? And what is an approximate weight of one of those batteries?
So yeah, we have that, but there's a asterisk mark there. The battery should allow us to charge fast. If it do that, like Tesla batteries do, we can put batteries in series and do charging fast. We don't want to alter the battery chemistry. So we are trying to optimize that within an hour, how much charging we can give if battery allows. But yeah, we can charge fast basis, adding more battery into that pack. Yeah.
Approximate weight of one of those battery packs?
So we have 150 kilowatt one battery, and it's at 70% after first cycle. So 100 kilowatt hours is one battery, and averagely different EVs have different battery capacities, but like they range from 60 kilowatt to 100 kilowatt hours. So we can charge.
Yeah, so they have 100 it's a 150 kilowatt hour battery, and the density is say 300, close to 300. So it should be over like 50 kgs.
I will point out that your battery sizes are quite large compared to what's on the road. Typical car battery is about 70 kilowatt hours.
Right. Yeah.
So you probably might
just we are utilizing the van to transport our batteries.
Right. Also because it's second life.
Weightlifters, right?
Yeah. So it's second life, professor. So from 150 we will anyway tone down to 100. So
yes.
If we want to charge a battery of 70, we need to send a battery for 100 exactly. So that it can charge more than 1 batteries in the go.
And what rate are you charging? I assume it's DC fast charge. Is it 150 kilowatt or?
We can do either depending on the specification of the car, because if it allows for fast charging, we can definitely go for that. We definitely don't want to fast charge a car that does not have that battery specific.
Okay, understood.
How do you guys get access to the charging infrastructure of the car itself? What's the?
I think that part is for the application. So when you book a service for that, it would be that service would be embedded into it. So when we arrive, you just have to open your port and we can.
We will put a sensor in the OBJ port of the car, and by putting that sensor, we'll get access. So you can remotely open that charging location. We can do that. And in our app, you will also have a thing to close it immediately if there is some issue or there is, some emergency or some issue happened, then you can remotely close that also. So you'll install a sensor there, because we are also monitoring how much battery is there, and we can send you push notifications. Like you are sitting in a mall and you get a push notification, your battery is below 30%. Do you want us to come and charge it? And if we are optimizing a trip, we may give you a better deal also.
Is there any concern that getting that level of access to the diagnostics of the car is somehow going to invalidate any kind of warranty that I have from the manufacturer of my car? Yeah. Putting an aftermarket or a third-party electronic.
It's just taking the data of how it's working right now. So if you give your data to Google and Facebook of how your phone is working, that as of now, it should not invalidate the warranty you have on your phones.
But honestly, we have not checked with the manufacturers. It may be a case, but
it may be so that if they want to kill the company, they may try something like that. But as of now, no, it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
I mean, the OBDC port is designed to be accessed by mechanics, which are third parties, but I guess I'm a little bit worried about what that access means on a 24/7 basis. So your company can access my car anytime they want, right?
No, you have to allow it without.
So, okay, so it's like a verification.
Yes.
Got it. All right.
No, I think you guys did a great job. I think there's a problem to be solved here. So as you were going through your presentation, one of the things I kept thinking about was the scooter companies like Bird, right? And those companies who raised hundreds of millions of dollars haven't been able to get the profitability, right? They've just burned through money. And business model, we ride the scooter, right? You drop it off, they come pick it up, they charge you to return it. For whatever reason, it's just been a very difficult business model. And there are a lot of parallels, right, to what you're doing here. So have you looked into that? Just something to consider. And I guess I think about this B2C market, although it may be more compelling, I think it's going to be harder than a B2B market. A free market.
Go ahead, Will.
Yeah, sure. No. Oh, I'm sorry. Great job, because I've seen the progress you guys have made and you've zeroed in. But from the numbers that I was able to glance, and you went very fast through it, and just the scope of what you describe, the software development and the investment in batteries and vehicles and training people, your ask seems very skinny. Okay, and I don't think you can launch this thing with somebody writing you $1.5 million check.
So, Professor, our total ask is, this is for the prototype. If you look at this thing, so in 7 years, or initial 3 years, capturing this market will need 200 million of investment, on which the IR will be 21%. The ask for 1.5 million is just to run a prototype to actually see the how it goes in the market, what other problems we may face, and to cement the prototyping stage. For real thing, it's very capital intensive. We will need a lot of money.
So in essence, he's right.
Yeah.
You should.
I think it's like,
instead of saying no to your audience, but he's right, you should actually say you're right, because our ask is only to get to the prototype, right? So,
okay.
One point I would make is I think you have some additional sources of revenue here. So arbitrage, I don't think arbitrage was in there. You're selling
6%.
Okay, so that is in there. Yep. You called it what, net metering then? Is that,
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what you mean by net metering. Yes. Okay, and then the other one is frequency stabilization, right?
Yes.
Is that part of net metering too, or is that?
It's combined with that.
It's in there somewhere. Okay, got it. All right.
But you've got an awful lot on your plate for what you're asking. Okay.
But they're going to be chasing the pennies on this stuff because it's a very competitive market. It's like gas stations never make money selling gas, right? How are you going to make money when you've got so many competitive networks out there?
That's the whole point. Was covered in the vision. So it's not just that we are going to stick to this forever. So when we get access to the data and we can use that, sell the data if it's useful, and provide services with respect to that. So because we know how a certain driver drives, we have a very good opportunity to provide them with insurance, because we know exactly what the premium for that person should be. And same thing with financing, we would have an advantage because we use second life batteries. So once you have a new EV, new battery, after 5 years, you want to change the battery because its range has reduced, we can actually buy that battery, use it in a commercial manner, and finance the new battery for the.
I'll go one step further. I think you're going to wind up being in the battery refurbishing business. That will become a sideline for you because you're buying second life batteries, you're stretching their life, you're going to be replacing modules, you're going to wind up becoming battery technicians, whether you like it or not. And then you might as well outsource that and say, okay, or at least create a service where you refurbish batteries for the mass market, because there's going to be a lot of batteries that are going to need to be refurbished. Right?
But great job.
Yes, excellent.
Very good.
Thinking, Jeff, we should take maybe a 10-minute break now, maybe get the group photograph, and also have the students have time with Jim, both Jims. Does that make sense?
That sounds good.
Okay, 10-minute break, guys. Let's come back at 7:35, and Evolution should be ready to go. You want to get a picture?
We'll take the picture first.
Picture first? Can we do the picture first, people? We're going to line up front here.
That's what happened. That's what
You want me to be there too?
Yes, of course. Of course.
I'd be mad at you if you just stayed sitting.
What do you think of the team?
Thank you for granted.
Who are more Nuvention?
Come on. Yeah, the class picture, the complete class picture. Everybody. Guys in the back.
All right.
Cover me.
All right. Over here.
Did you be able to get everybody in here?
We blend right in with these guys, right?
I said,
Please join us.
Stand in front of the cover.
Right? Eric and Jim, please join us.
Come on.
I'll get everybody in.
You and I are always in the back.
Yeah, you want to go here?
Jonathan,
All of you guys can you please?
Nuvention Energy, fall 23. Give us a smile. All right. Uh-oh. Now he's got a third of us.
We're in it? I don't know if we're in it.
He's got the middle.
Yeah.
The edges were not.
How are you?
I'm sorry. Was it okay?
I'll probably be.
I think the first row, the horizontal ones are good.
That's good. Thank you. Thank you. Of course. What's up?
I wanted to share some photos with you.
John!
Kind of. So I was working in California projects with
Meet you in Ireland, okay?
So he offered me an internship.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah,
She ran
so
their
for the internship. So I was working for them and I'm doing my studies also. So he said that he'll pay me for it.
Interface looks fine.
With the ECD. And when will it start? January?
So I talked to the OIS's advisor, so they said I can start from December 10th. So Ben said that he can
Because you're on break, right?
yeah, Ben said he can get me the offer letter by tomorrow.
So I told him to set up an office in Chicago or something, working out of conference room. Because it's just like he's just so lucky that he had access to these conferences.
Yeah.
But I'm very happy.
Thank you. So I didn't get the offer letter yet, but I thought I'll let you know since I won't see you until after.
So how do you like this class?
This is great.
Amazing,
Yeah.
right? Especially today with Murphy.
And today, I was actually taking notes because I'm applying for grants and then all these tax credits and all this.
So now you're educated.
Yeah, and also we can. So
But you're not competing.
They're not
necessarily.
Because they want to take this technology back home.
Yes. We're starting with.
Think about it, it's generating all this credit, turning that into India.
Yeah, I mean, the Calabria one also has a part of it.
I know, which I tried to introduce them, but I don't think they're interested.
So I was.
Is this technology better or the Calabria?
So I need to learn more. I thought I'd get his card and then maybe have a talk.
Yeah, you need to do a benchmark.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, if you don't get it, I can send you some.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
You guys are like,
You know what? You can decide to be climate doubter and still make the changes that you need to drive profitability, and we'll just call it a day, and everybody will be happy. Whatever you want to call it. Yeah, my wife does so much insurance. It's like same thing. It's like talk about it. Companies pitching same thing, right? We don't have to talk about environmental benefits. We can talk about operational efficiency.
Oh, I didn't ask anything specific. I told him there is no limit.
Food laid out there?
Like, I'm sorry. I got it. Yeah.
I didn't ask him specifically. He said,
You're ready. See what you're doing. I mean, like for a while, I was like, my wife's family. We used to go out every day.
But I
My daughter was and yeah, every time. So there were only so many more times for the end of the day. I was like, about time. Maybe do like pick a quote, like your favorite quote. Okay. Oh, so you'll do an overview.
Yeah.
Okay. Will you highlight any of them?
I just
Yeah, not a hard drive. Yeah. Although I would say, oh yeah, yeah, we at least have social development. Ireland after that one, we would say Australia, like collaboration all the time. That was the cool part about it. Is like he was out
literally.
It's
I'm
great.
so excited for like the next part of it.
I gotta do it. I gotta lock this thing in.
Yeah, I gotta get it. Trust me.
We're in the original really?
So we went down to a big unit set up. They have Norman Rockwell. This is Bogdan standing. He opens the hatch. 2,000 degrees.
Elizabeth high school and college.
And then 15 years later,
yeah. That was, I feel like that was the equivalent of like
that'll drive up, the marketplace. Everything starts working well. So what we're doing is
Oh, wait, I do. Wait, hold on.
agricultural, biomass, and also
He doesn't want to pay for it.
No, he said the question that way. I think he just wants to answer that. I can't, I literally
Yeah, we got some. I'm so excited.
Yeah, no, it's something that I've been seeing more so often.
Yeah, I got some
data centers. Questions actually to you.
Which is actually the most energy that's on and off.
We talk about like process and investigation of the yes, we want to do is produce exact. Everything is we're not producing any byproduct other than
at that point, you wouldn't buy it.
One of the issues is that
just like it's interesting because I read all these jobs.
Form that have to be so it can be kind of lengthy.
I think 4,000 is.
A lot of people like, oh, you need to have here's my
right now we force them.
Build stuff. You got into development for a reason. You're the joy out of what you're doing because essentially you become a glorified number checker.
Letting them sit there and season and dry out. Sometimes that one is then they'll go into process. Well, most of that is things like making and things like that. What the tree.
Right now, so
cutting the pellets.
I hate looking at one outside because it's so slippery.
Put it into the wood chipper like a celery stalk. That goes straight into our system.
I mean, this type of red is not bad. Compared to butter, it'd be hard, right? Like, to a point you can't see it.
Think about that. All started.
One where there's like flash floods and everything. I like that. Those kind of.
The very first, like a recycling program.
Like little droplets.
Glasses.
Oh, okay. That's where I got.
I was at the corner in the landfill, so they separate those out.
Sorry, guys, you're late, but better
And then this Jim Murphy. I said every.
I was at the.
That's Grab a seat. We're gonna try to. We got 5 more teams to go, but we will have food brought in. Hopefully about 8:30 or 9.
Okay, sounds good. But then our product is
Can we start getting back together, guys? I hate to do this, but if we're gonna try to get out of here before midnight, that's the only chance we have, right? Don't give me that look. I was only kidding. It'll be 11:45 at the latest.
Oh my God.
Hey, thank you so much for coming. It's really fun. No one talks about transitions. Jay, you finally getting it. Like, no one.
What brings you here? What brings you here?
So I went, I started this class many years ago.
My mom.
How about you?
I've had the pleasure of being an advisor that since come later.
Okay, great.
Whoever you want to get paid.
All these.
At least another hour and a half.
Know him, and I
mean, what keeps us tired. All right, let's get going with evolution.
Yeah, exactly.
You guys ready?
So why don't we just do a merger or something like that? Create like a consortium where private companies and whatever businesses earn, they take the share. I based on that.
Evolution, let's get going. Bring it up here.
Okay. But then, okay. Like a major consortium.
While Evolution is setting up, Evolution is setting up. I want to introduce another guest. We have one more guest that just made it, Eve Hansen. Eve is from
Energy Impact Partners.
There you go, Energy Impact Partners. So she was a guest speaker earlier in the school year, right? So
That's right.
we all remember Eve. Thank you for coming, Eve. We appreciate it. Okay. Again, let's keep it to 10 minutes. We'll be timing you guys carefully, as we have in the past. You ready? All right, take it away, Evolution.
Okay, hello everyone. We are Evolution, energizing lives, empowering homes, one vehicle at a time. This is our team. Okay, so we have 3 key observations about energy and American society today. First, the current state of the US electricity grid is alarming. Over 70% of infrastructure is more than 25 years old, reaching the end of its lifetime. And this aging infrastructure is leading to increased power outages and operational inefficiencies. Second, the transition towards renewable energy, while essential, is being restricted by inadequate transmission infrastructure, which was highlighted by Jim from Invenergy. Third, climate change is intensifying weather-related power outages, which are having significant physical, human, and economic impacts, costing customers a total of $77 billion annually. The central issue we see here is the dire need for distributed storage solutions. Therefore, because we don't have them currently, we are facing serious consequences and will continue to face even worse. The deteriorating grid combined with extreme weather conditions is resulting in more power outages. And not only are we experiencing more power outages, but they're getting longer in duration. Where is our world headed? A place of unreliable, intermittent, and going to be non-existent power on demand when we need it. However, what if we actually had that distributed storage solution I was talking about already sitting right in front of us? Electric vehicles, already a common sight, are more than just a means of transport. They're actually the best possible mobile energy storage unit that can be effectively integrated into homes and society as we know it. With the increasing adoption of EVs, as seen in the US and globally, this approach is becoming more and more viable, and it shows that it's here to stay, which is offering us the best solution to the challenges of power disruptions and grid inefficiencies. Recognizing this potential of 3 days and beyond for just one vehicle, we see that homeowners can use their EVs as an energy resource and not only load on the grid, transforming a challenge into an opportunity for us to create energy resilience for the entire United States.
So what's our solution here? What we are really aiming at is to transform your EV vehicle, your electric vehicle, into a reliable energy source to power your home. Our innovative solution utilizes the power of energy arbitrage technology using smart home automation to optimize efficiency and reduce costs. We want you to embrace a sustainable and intelligent energy future with Evolution. So our solution has 3 parts. So the first part is the EV vehicle, the second is the V2L smart box, and then the smart home application. So what we want to do is we want to integrate these 3 parts, allow you to be able to easily optimize your home energy use, and then have everything at your fingerprint. What do we offer? We have a seamless user interaction. So what we plan to do is utilize IoT devices in the various homes, mainly on your major home appliances, to be able to easily interact with it. Secondly, we have advanced ATS capability. We plan to use state-of-the-art solid state and relaying technology to be able to transfer loads easily between all the utility system connected and all the other power sources. We also provide bidirectional EV charging to enable V2L and V2G in the future. We also offer additional backup supply. In case you have a solar system already installed or a diesel backup generator, you can easily connect it up and interact with your home system easily. We also have smart control of energy consumption. Our AI-powered software will be able to allow you to understand your home consumption, especially with your critical loads or your heavy loads in the house, and then provide you information as to how you can manage all these sources as you move along. And then energy arbitrage technology. We want to utilize that to be able to understand the patterns of pricing and then apply that directly into how you are going to utilize the energy, whether you want to actually use it for your home or you want to sell it or what. So we identified 3 strategic advantages with our solution. We have seamless integration. We want to be able to do this easily. As part of our interviews, we realized that it's really difficult to integrate V2L into your average home. There's supposed to be so many interlocks and other devices you need to install to ensure that you have a seamless system operating. So we want to do end-to-end. We want to be able to provide you simple devices you can easily retrofit, adaptable with Wi-Fi or any good communication system that can enable us to do that. We have V2G capabilities. We are looking at doing more research into V2G, understanding what it will take for us to get there and how economical it can be. Customizable app, so we are able to, the user is able to easily change however he wants to use his application. He can adapt it to how his preferences are, whatever he wants to use it for. Yeah.
So looking at our target market for electric vehicle, we noticed that California, Florida, and Texas have the highest EV registration count. And then based on our analysis of power vulnerable states, we decided to select Texas and California as our beachhead markets. We see a lot of potentials in the high EV adoption rates and also the grid stability issues. Moving on to our distribution channels, once our MVP and soft market launch is done, we will push the market via 3 channels: our car dealership network, retail channels, and direct sales to consumers.
Coming to the product development plan, we have a 5-year plan in which in the first year, we will be developing the product in terms of making the complete engineering, designing, getting the testing done, the certifications in place. And in the second year, we'll be looking at a minimum product viability check, and we'll do a soft release and enter the beachhead markets. In the year 3, we'll be entering full scale in terms of manufacturing and the industry to get the complete market penetration done. And in the year 4, we'll be introducing more features such as V2G to have an enhanced product and to cater more clients. And in the 5th year, we'll be trying to penetrate the complete US market and increase our revenues. And for this 5-year plan, we will be needing 1.13 million that we are looking at, which will be utilized in such a way that in the first year for doing the complete product development, we are looking at $780,000. And for entering the markets after doing the MVP and the soft release, we will be requiring $350,000. From year 3, we will be generating revenue. In the first year, we are looking at $436,000. In the year 4, we are looking at 1 million, and in the year 5, we'll be close to $1.5 million.
So the per person economics break down to about $4,000 per piece of hardware and $30 a month for the premium version of the app. The gross margins for the hardware and the software respectively will be 38% and 60%. And so after subtracting the operating expenses, each person will yield about $1,400 plus any additional subscription in profit. The company is targeting about 25 units in the first year, expanding to 500 units per year by the 5th. As stated before, there's a hardware component and a software component. The software estimate is a conservative assumption because it's only factoring the new customers who continue using the app. The bottom line estimate is $33,000 in the first year in profit, increasing to $600,000 if we meet our goal of 500 units per year.
So working with technology is always accompanied by risks. We address technology risk by implementing thorough, compatibility checks, and partnerships with integrated solutions. For electrical safety, we follow UL certified standards and employ certified electricians. To ensure data security, we implement strong cybersecurity and educate the users. We mitigate operational risks with quality control and efficient supply chain management. Financially, we diversify funding and maintain healthy cash flow to manage uncertainties. Our IP patenting mapping process ensures robust protection for our innovations. In stage 1, we conduct thorough IP research. Stage 2 focuses on securing early patents, especially for V2G and V2L technology. Stage 3 protects software through copyrights. Stage 4 considers trademarking our brand and product names. Finally, in stage 5, we stay ahead by monitoring new patents and emerging technologies. This approach safeguards our intelligent and intellectual property, setting the stage for our sustained progress and success. Thank you. Through evolution, we energize lives, empowering home one vehicle at a time.
Thank you. Thank you for keeping it in time. Any questions for this team?
I have one thing. They don't really want to hear what I have to say. The functionality that you have for your V2L is not going to be expected by the market. In other words, first it will take a long time to develop because you're really trying to boil the ocean of energy management at a residence. In other words, I feel that a number of EV owners, all they want to do is get the energy into an extension cord and take that extension cord to either their furnace or their air conditioner or their refrigerator. Okay, and you're giving them a sledgehammer to solve that problem while a regular hammer would do the job. Okay, so you really need to consider, okay, a market entry product. Your goal is lofty, great, fantastic, okay? You guys have done a fantastic job in the last 4 weeks because you pivoted 4 weeks ago. But I think that you got starry-eyed about the potential of all this technology and all these things, and you need a better way of getting into the market than waiting and doing all that development. But great job.
Thank you. The only thing I'll say about it is most of the things that we considered for the technical side already exist. So if you see solid states release, they're already existing and they're easily controlled by microcontrollers. And it is very easy for you to interact with different other devices. So it's the reason why our cost for development is actually low is because we know that the technology already exists. We just need to modify it to make sure it fits the purpose for which we want to make it work. So I think for the development parts, we research into it and we know that we have the technology. We just have to engage maybe more experienced engineers to be able to get a good design, IP it, test it out in the market to make sure it works. So I think that's what we research on and we know about.
Yeah. I'm thinking there is a significant market where something at half their investment of your $4,000, okay, with a free app, okay, is going to be a substantially larger and easier to integrate, easier for your dealer partners, your direct-to-consumer market. Direct-to-consumer market at $4,000, you're going to have to get an installer
Exactly.
to work with you.
And it's part of it.
Yeah.
And I think if you want to penetrate that market, you gotta be able to satisfy the do-it-yourselfer as well.
We're considering having like a lower scale product that, like you said, just for market penetration is able to provide V2L in times of need. But it's not as easy as you're making it seem to be able to plug your car into a home. So
that's why you got it solved.
That's why. So yeah.
Yeah.
But we're considering the additional products.
But I gotta applaud you guys, okay? You pivoted 4 weeks ago, you zigged and zagged a bit, okay? So great job.
I would point out that, to do this right, you're gonna need something like a transfer switch or a sub panel, and I assume that's built into your magic box, right?
So the interesting part about it is the solid state relays are just like contactors, if anyone has worked with them before. So what happens is you send like a small voltage from a microcontroller and then it activates like a contactor, but it's semiconductor device. So it's even better for you to, now what you have is you are able to use code to direct how power flows just by sending an output of a small millivolts. You get it? So it's even better than the standard ones where you have to go up or go down. And with that one, with a microcontroller, you can connect it to Wi-Fi and you can connect it to your phone. And with all these smart devices connected to your appliances, you can easily control whether they come on, come off, monitor their
every piece of electrical equipment that gets connected to the home has to be compliant with the National Electrical Code.
Exactly.
So you're gonna have to make sure and make that part of your presentation that either you're gonna make it compliant or already is, or you're gonna have to somehow change and update the code. But frankly, you're right. I think a lot of these parts already exist. There's already EVSE equipment that is V2G capable in the market today. So the question is, why can't Tesla get there before you? I mean, they've got all the pieces.
One thing that we realize is, as I mentioned with our interviews, we realize that the process of doing it, so people develop products they develop the products, they don't really understand what the customer journey is to actually get the car in, connect it to their home, interlocks, trying to change from utility to their car and all that. They don't really factor in that, right? And one easy part about it is the devices already exist. The IoT devices already exist. Right? You can now control this, even the power supply to this building, by installing just a small peripheral device or a small smart breaker, and you can turn the power on and off
with an app.
With an app on your phone. Right. Exactly. So integrating these different things was where we found our sweet spots. Smart home systems, having a box which has your utility or other power sources connected, even spare connections as well, and then your smart home system, the smart home devices installed on your appliances. That gives us a good sweet spot.
So I think the emphasis, if it were on backup, emergency backup,
exactly,
and if you were comparing it to the traditional backup, which is a diesel genset sitting behind your house in the backyard, and you did a cost comparison for the typical home, I think your solution would be exemplary, because you'd have so much less cost.
Yeah.
The battery is already there in the car.
Yeah.
You don't need the generation, you just need the switching and the isolation. The NEC is worried about backfeed. They don't want you to backfeed your power, the car from the energy from the car into the grid.
Exactly.
That's what they're worried about. So you're going to have to isolate, and once you do that, I mean, it's just switches fundamentally, right? And IoT devices.
Yeah, and you just interlock it so that you have to isolate before you allow for the flow from the car.
Effectively, it's a transfer switch with a sub panel.
Transfer switches come from $200 to $1,000 in the kilowatt capacity.
The typical home backup is at $10,000. Right?
Exactly, and they are competitive, but
it could be. Yeah.
There are still people like me that said I wanted at 2,000.
I'm sure you do. Eve's going to bring us
out your unit. So the hardware unit's about $4,000. Is that just for controls? Can you talk about why that's so expensive? If that's
so, the $4,000 is our market price, but the actual production price about $2,200.
Okay.
Yeah, so
what? Because the power electronics are so expensive.
Power electronics mainly, and then other things that we've included is even the installation costs for whoever is coming to your house to install.
Oh, okay.
And also we added peripheral devices for all the other appliances that have to be connected to the device. So if you have like your TV, instead of connecting it directly, we can connect the smart device, connecting it to the socket, and then you connect your appliance there. So then we monitor and we can isolate whenever with your app.
Mm-hmm.
So then now you have your utility, you have your EV connected, you have this peripheral device connected to your application as well. So we have a lot of we included 4 of these devices for your critical load. So your refrigerators, your air conditioners, maybe your heat pumps as well. So these devices are included as part of the cost. We also estimated the cables that we use. We estimated about 100 feet of cable.
Okay.
Trying to pull it from where your main connection is into a distribution panel, and then having where your utility comes in, and then your EV vehicle as well. So we thought through the process and we calculated everything. That's how come we got to 2,200. And
I recently did this to my house, the transfer switch, the sub panel, the electrician work. It was about $2,000. So I think you're right in the money. Just recognize that electrician costs keep going up. So they're about $200 an hour now.
So we're looking at partner channels who will go and install it. So that's what we are planning to develop. That we are asset light.
Okay.
Great.
Thumbs up.
Yeah. Really great.
Thank you. All right, green debt is next.
Yeah.
That's what they say.
You sign up for this class to get a hard time. I told him I was going to get it. Said because if you guys don't stick to your script, you'll lose it.
All right, guys, you have 10 minutes. Take it away.
We are Green Debt Investments, and we are creating an ecosystem to promote sustainable farming. Okay. So first we want to introduce Walter, who is a real farmer. We got the privilege to interview. He is a poultry farmer in Virginia, and he is currently $3.6 million in debt with an interest rate of 8.2%. That's going to take him about 20 years to pay back. And he does want to make sustainable changes to his farm, but he really can't afford to make any changes with the amount of debt that he has. And so he is one of the hundreds of thousands of farmers in America who are experiencing the biggest agricultural debt crisis that America has had in its entire history. Farmers currently have about $535 billion in agricultural debt, and the fastest growing source of that debt is from their interest rates. So $34 billion of that debt is from interest rates alone. So there are about 2 million farms in the US, and about a quarter of those farms currently have some sort of debt. And so what these farmers need to move over to sustainable practices on their farms is funding. And in order to get that funding, we are aiming to talk to our investors who are companies who have ESG initiatives in place. And so the reason we're targeting these companies with ESG initiatives is because they really want to see impactful work. They want to see that they're doing impactful work in the environment and in an industry that really deserves it.
Yep. So what Tracy mentioned were not just numbers. It was actually lives and sustainability of people who bring food to us each day. So realizing the problem and also the opportunity that we have at our hand, we at Green Debt Investments have come up with a multifaceted approach to solve this problem. So it's not just about elevating the debt issue that the farmers are currently facing. We are going to indirectly solve the food, like the concerns on food safety and concerns with respect to implementing ESG initiatives. Like pretty much every company has these goals, but then how clearly are they being done is something that we are concerned about. And we are currently would be having 3 primary partners involved in the solution that we are talking about. Primarily farmers, and then the investors, and our clean agri providers who will be partnering with us, who in turn will help farmers implement the solutions in their land. So going ahead. So we talked about Walter, and there were more farmers who are actually willing to make the sustainable transition, but then they need the finance. So we are trying to provide them debt at a lower rate, and are expecting them in return to follow certain regenerative practices, which we'll be talking about in later slides. And our approach here is to partner with farmer unions and local communities to onboard them onto our platform. Going ahead. Yeah, for investors, it's not just about it's not just an investment opportunity, but it's an opportunity for them to be a part of the movement, and then fund for a cause that actually has a significant impact on the overall environmental goals. And here we are primarily looking at philanthropic organizations, and then there are certain ESG and impact-based funds. Pretty much every big firm, every big investment firm, for example, Morgan Stanley, they have their separate wings who have allocated funds towards ESG. And then going ahead, we will be partnering with agriculture, clean agri companies. This will not just benefit the farmers, but this creates a ripple effect where it paves way for improving, for developing a sustainable agriculture ecosystem altogether. And yeah, here we are primarily looking at agri technology companies, regenerative companies, and also food and beverage companies who will help sell the produce.
So before we dive into the business model, I want to explain what regenerative farming is. So the point of regenerative farming is to conserve some of the core nutrients and elements that are going to be essential for farmers going forward. A lot of these resources are being depleted in the farming system right now. So having this sustainable practices creates value for the farmers in terms of long-term sustainability and profits for their farm. The way that you achieve this is there's 2 different methods of doing it. You can do it through processes, which is practices that create better soil nutrients, have more effective crop yields, or you can do it through technologies, which allow you to be more efficient in using your nutrients to create the farm that you want to see. So to explain how we're going to create value for the farmers and the investors that we're working with, I set up a business model. So on the farmers, beyond the appeal of being more sustainable, we'll also be reducing their debt load, which means that there is a monetary incentive attached to being more sustainable, allowing them to overcome some of the hurdles that we've seen that they have when making this transition. For investors, we talked about how they want to see sustainability, but we're also attaching that sustainability to a monetary incentive as well through the profits that they'll be receiving from the interest. On our end, we are the ones creating the value for both farmers and the investors through our partnerships, and we'll be creating value for ourselves through the management fee that we'll be collecting.
Right. So we really wanted to create a solution that creates value for both the investors as well as the farmers. On the farmer side, practices such as no-till and cover crop farming can increase the profits from a farm by $85 to $100 per acre, mainly due to reduced material costs. So using less water, using less pesticides, insecticides, less fuel for tilling the farm. All of these things add up and give you that savings over a year. And then the reduced interest is obviously, if you take the interest rate of 8% and make it 4%, the savings and interest again is something that the farmer can reinvest into sustainable practices. On the investor side, we did a unit economic calculation to figure out how much money investors would have to invest, and all of these sustainable practices also result in carbon sequestration. So after all the calculations, we figured out that the effective rate of carbon credits for the investors is between $1 to $8 per ton, depending on how much subsidy they're providing to the farmer and various other factors. But that is much lower than the $12.7 per ton rate that is there in the market right now. So we are trying to create value for both sides of the equation.
So these organizations are all other organizations that our farmers can go to secure capital, to expand their farms. What makes us different from from our competition is that we're the only organization that can work with the current farmers' current financial situation and allow them to pivot with the debt that they already have in order to be more sustainable. So that means that these people aren't really our competition, but more our collaborators. We're looking to work with equity organizations and governmental organizations in order to increase our farmer pipeline, as well as get some of the resources that we need to help make this transition possible. The government organizations also provide grants that we can take advantage of to help finance some of these transitions as well. When we're going to market, though, our strategy for this is first by making the partnerships that we want to see. Once we have these partnerships set up, we will then go to the investors and raise round one and distribute that to our farmers that we've sourced through our partners as quickly as we can. The target customer that we're going to be looking for fills this persona, kind of a Midwest farmer, lots of acreage, who has a desire for sustainable practices, but hasn't been able to do that yet because they are hindered by their high interest rates. Once we set this up, we're going to be implementing our regenerative value by helping them with some of the practices that we talked about, as well as having frequent check-ins with those farmers to make sure that they're on track and doing what we want them to be doing. We believe that we are the right team to do this because of our diverse range of backgrounds and expertise, as well as our background. Some of our team members have a background in farming as well. We believe that with this team, we'll be able to achieve what we're hoping to accomplish through this solution.
Lastly, looking at the financing needs, we are looking for two kinds of fundraisings. One is we want to issue debt to farmers, and therefore we need capital. That capital is around 36 million, with which we want to issue around 70 to 80 contracts, depending on the size of the respective debt we are buying for. The target investors we are looking for that is somebody who is less risk-affine than, let's say, a VC, since we're talking about a debt product. On the second side, we need financing to set up our operations, especially hiring people, starting a marketing campaign, launching a credit product, and getting out on there to secure customers. For that, we are looking to raise 500K, which should give us a runway of about 12 months, and we aim to target especially typical venture capital investors, basis angels, rather than the startup environment. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, I've got that open note right now. So if you remember Walter from the first slide, if we had partnered with Green Debt, we could have saved him $144,000 per year on interest payments. Over 20 years, that's $2.9 million that we saved. And we really hope Walter becomes our first customer.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Any questions for this team?
Can we go in the back? I saw Chad. You had your hand up.
So we're obviously in a pretty high interest rate environment right now. Is there concern that your value proposition is not as strong as farmers may be able to refinance at lower rates in the coming years? Or do you always anticipate that there's an arbitrage opportunity with debt financing from your farmers?
Yeah, I think the latter, definitely, because I think in a high interest rate market, there's obviously more opportunity for us to do what we want to do. But even when they are lower, I think with just how volatile the industry is, there will always be farmers in debt who will need some relief. So I think there's always opportunity for us to reduce that.
How do we do the negative arbitrage? Is that we capitalize the carbon credits which are generated by sustainable farming. So there will be always a gap. Yes, if you are in a low interest rate environment, that gap might be smaller. And now in the current environment, the absolute gap might be a bit bigger, but I think for the foreseeable futures or where we are trying to get into the market, I think we will not see 1 to 2% interest rates next year or the year afterwards.
Yeah. I saw that with your regenerative farming, there was the traditional and technology. I think that's what it was.
Technology and process.
In process, that's right. Yes. Process. Is part of your solution to design and optimize for the farmers in combination of those two processes and technology, depending on their crops and et cetera? Is that part of your design?
Yeah, so something that we've been talking with a lot of our potential farmers about is that this process really needs to be customized for each farm that we work with, since every farm is going to be a different size, have different crops and different desires. So hopefully what we'll be able to do is some combination of both with everyone that we'll be working with, but we'll likely see a range of different applications and what we'll be doing with them based on what they've already done and based on what they want to do and what their capabilities are. So it's going to take definitely some on-the-ground work with our farmers and figuring out what we're going to be doing. We hope to implement as many of these as possible throughout the time period that we'll be working with these farmers.
I mean, and also the calculations about unit economics or the economics, we calculated it based on the farmers willing to just implement crop rotation and then no-till. So the more sustainable practices they're willing to take on, it'll in turn generate more revenue for green tech, because we'll be getting a pay cut from the clean tech companies. So and also, as you mentioned, a few farmers might have already been following certain practices. For them, it would because they're already implementing a few, we should come up with certain other ones which fit the model.
And if you can show the value added by introducing some of those other approaches, I think that would be really helpful. So,
yeah.
Right. So there's
one question on. Sorry, can I ask? I just have one question on NPAs, which is non-performing assets. What is your hedge against that? Means, have you developed a credit metric to study this better? And what is the historical NPAs in this sector? Non-performing, if the loan will turn non-performing for a farmer, means how we're going to deal with it?
I'm not sure I fully understood. Like you're saying, how do we assess risk of our farmers?
Yes. Default rate.
Yeah, the default. I mean, it depends a bit. We need to do due diligence on those farmers and see how was their track record and what is the expected success rate of different farming practices in that area. And that's one avenue. The second avenue is to partner with banks and source their intelligence. I think they have built over decades those risk assessments. I think banks do not necessarily need to be competition. They can be also partners. So that would be a second avenue to assess the risk.
Last year we had a team called Volterra, and I'm remembering from what they were presenting, which was basically a more specific form of sustainable agriculture. You're aware of these guys, right? Soil conditioners.
Yeah.
So you're working with them. I mean, I can see a natural complement here. Because you seem to have the financial structures and they seem to have the technology. So it seems like a good match, right? Or am I missing something?
No, yeah, they would absolutely be one of our partners in terms of the technology that we'd be doing to implement the regenerative agriculture is where we see them fitting into this piece. And since we've already talked with them, I think theoretically have agreed to partner with us. So going forward, they'd be one of the first people that we're in touch with and probably one of the first things that we'd be implementing with the farms that we're working with.
It was one of the most successful teams from last year. So they already have 300,000 in funding as last I checked. And 200 of it came from, competitions, and another 100 or so from grants. And they're still out there. I mean, they're growing, they're adding resources. So I think this is promising. I mean, obviously a team that had very similar pitch a year ago is out there succeeding. So I can see you succeeding as well.
Do you have a plan or do you have an assessment of the cost to find that farmer that is that is not having good sustainable practices and that is willing to do it? because you said upfront 25% of the farmers are only in that, the other 75% are not your customers. You're talking about doing it in the Midwest with corn. Corn is not a very capital intensive, or many corn farmers are not borrowing money to buy land, because that is all the land that is being farmed has been farmed. So it is just selling is the only thing for land. So there is the chicken farmer in Carolina is capital intensive, while a corn farmer in the Midwest is not very capital intensive. So how are you going to find your client, your total addressable market farmer? Where is he and how are you going to get to him?
Yeah, so I think that's why we've talked a lot about the partners that we're going to be working with. So with like lots of our conversations with people who work in the government and people who are working with like equity organizations, they say that they have a lot of farmers coming to them that they're not able to service the needs of those farmers. So we're hoping that with these partnerships, they'll redirect the farmers that are in too much debt and have too high interest rates for them to work with in expanding their capital, to then send to us so that we're able to help them refinance those loans and become more sustainable. And so a lot of these partners that we were talking about are trying to make this sustainable transition already. So the farmers that we will get redirected to us are already taking steps in the direction that we'd like to see, and we'll be able to help them progress further.
Okay, all right, thank you.
We had one more question.
Yeah, I was just curious. So we've seen a real reckoning of confidence in the carbon credit market over the last 12 to 24 months. How are you guys thinking about your monitoring, reporting, and verification strategy, or continuing to ensure that the farmers are showing the sustainable practices over time?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that we talked about is having check-ins with the farmers. Like, this is going to require a lot of on-the-ground time with the farmers. We also want to incorporate some data integration with the farmers as part of the technology and make sure that we're seeing some of the carbon absorption that we expect from these practices into the soil as part of the nutrients. That's something that Volterra does especially well in terms of carbon absorption. So we'd be hoping to get some technology on the ground using the capital that we freed up in order to help those farmers track their carbon process and create further value from these practices.
Okay, thank you. All right, ClimateGuard is next. Thank you, Green Debt. So e-mobility was dealing with the collapse of the grid. Green Debt was talking about the collapse of the farming system. So you can't wait to see what kind of a disaster the next team is going to deal with. I think the name kind of gives it away. I can already foresee what the next disaster is going to be. Noel, how are we doing? Good, thank you. I love that. You seem, I like the bubble. I don't know how he did that. I mean, I want to know how.
It's automatic.
It's automatic? Is it part of the software?
Yeah, if you show a sign, it'll show the sign on top.
I didn't know that. See, this is great. Yeah. The beauty of software.
Having Zoom problems.
Are you on the session? Will it now let you share? So Jim, what do you think so far? How are we doing?
Very interesting.
Yeah,
very interesting.
Got a good variety so far.
It is.
We'll get even more. So the next three are gonna blow you away.
He's already set the stage for you, so anything better than a collapse is going to be good.
You want to see what's the next thing to collapse, right? Ah, okay, I think we're seeing what it's going to be.
What?
All right.
All right, 10 minutes. Take it away, guys.
Good evening, everybody. So we are flood guard.
And our team comprises of Jonah, Isaac, myself, Christine, and Nawa. So let's explain. So stormwater management systems are integral to every single community, and effective stormwater management systems are necessary for the protection of both the built and natural environment. So let me address the problem that we have today. Currently, because of climate change, we have intensified and erratic rain events. For example, in the Northeast, there's a 73% increase in flooding, as well as 16% in the South. And currently, a lot of infrastructure isn't getting updated, it's aging, and it's doing poorly. On top of that, there's rising population, so this is definitely an issue we need to address. Additionally, municipalities have really bad funding in terms of stormwater management and maintenance. We're seeing this in a lot of states right now. We talked to the Illinois NWRD, and we also said the same thing. And delayed maintenance heightens the risks of structural damage in many communities. Additionally, on top of funding issues, labor shortages are also a really big issue. So what we are introducing is that we want to introduce an IoT-enabled management system for stormwater infrastructure. And what this is going to do is that we're going to have sensors, and including water logging and flood water monitoring, and this will give you real-time updates. Should there be any issues and any abnormalities, this will send to the municipalities to update them in order for them to allocate staff. And now I will explain this further.
So we are introducing innovative technology on the existing system, the existing pipeline systems, by installing wireless sensors. These sensors will monitor the operating, the function of the systems, and it will be installed on the critical drainage points, where these sensors are programmed and to monitor the pipelines or network and observe any abnormality. This sensor will detect if there is any abnormality in the system, and then notify the municipality. The smart monitoring system will provide the real-time data to alert the municipality, and then take the required action. Also, it will analyze the data and anticipate any failure in the future. Additionally, it will notify the municipality the type of the alert and the intensity of it as well. It will also provide the exact location of the drainage where the crew can mobilize to it. And it will also generate the task list and the required anticipated materials, such as hydrojetting and etc. Lastly, the crew will mobilize based on the given data and will attend any maintenance activity throughout their route.
So moving into identifying our target market and our beachhead. So we were looking for mid to large population municipalities with rapidly growing suburban areas, a competitive labor market, and all of this meaning that there are emerging demands on their infrastructure. As far as weather, we're looking for a region that has rainfall and heavy downpours. The reason for the rainfall being so that our system can identify clogs, obstructions before perhaps a heavier event, a heavier rain event, and then of course issue zones with environmental compliance requirements and locations susceptible to environmental challenges, obviously specifically flooding. Here go to the next. And so that's how we settled on the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. You can see here eighth fastest growing metro, 80 municipalities with populations greater than 10,000 residents. It has that rainfall, type of rainfall we were looking for, and an interesting fact, actually, is more rainfall than Seattle. and in excess of 90,000 storm drains in the region, and a rapidly expanding population center. So urban sprawl and suburban sprawl.
So we're going to cover our business model now. So first and foremost, we're going to sell and install or help install these initial sensors and monitor these sensors for them, developing a dashboard for these communities. Again, these dashboards will be unique to each community to service their specific needs. It'll have a recurring revenue model where we'll charge a yearly subscription for access to the dashboard that they'll then use to effectively deploy their staff to address any flood concerns. And lastly, to expand our business, we will offer additional sensors to accommodate a community expanding or potential development needs. So marketing and sales strategies. So four main areas here: proof of concepts phase, local expansion, broader market penetration, and then lastly, our long-term vision. So in our proof of concept phase, we're going to initially partner with a smaller community in the Dallas-Fort Worth metro, where we'll test our technology and its effectiveness. So of mine, Prosper, Texas, North Dallas, rapidly expanding, has seen 100+ people move there per day since 2021. It's actually ridiculous how fast it's growing, partnering with some of these new subdivisions that are being built out. And lastly, we're going to analyze the success of our system by comparing it to customer complaints. So one of the interesting tidbits we got from our interviews last week, yes, Thanksgiving week, I said it. We actually found out that the way that most cities find out that their drains are clogged is because someone's calling in to say, hey, this isn't flowing right and it's coming into my yard. So the way we could test our pilot system is, one, by identifying we actually saw a reduction in the number of these calls, and two, whether when we received a call, our sensor was actually identifying that there was a clog. In our next phase of our development, we would look to expand locally. So building off of our proof of concept phase, we'd like to approach neighboring communities, similar size and population, that are experiencing similar characteristics to our proof of concept. Again, leveraging that proof of concept success, and again, tailoring those solutions specific to each community.
So after we expand locally, we look to go beyond the DFW region. Again, here though, we'll look for places with competitive labor markets, so high labor cost, to go out and do monitoring and maintenance of the stormwater system, and then susceptibility to the kind of rainfall events that we're interested in. We'll rely here on the accumulated data and experience and testimonials from expanding to the Dallas region to sort of build credibility and expand further. So long-term vision here. We know this is going to be sort of an iterative process. We also expect that there's significant R&D that's going to be involved here. And there are some other companies that are in the market. They don't do this exact thing, but they're in the sensor market for stormwater and sewage systems. So we expect that we'll need to adapt our product to try to stay ahead of them. But last, we'd scale the business model state by state. So what are we looking for in terms of investment? We think it's going to take $900,000 to get this thing off the ground. That covers three things. One, development of the sensor technology. These are fairly basic systems. It's just how you take existing tools and devices and put them together in a way that works for this purpose. Second, we're running a 6-month pilot in a community of around 50,000 residents. Like Isaac mentioned, we're thinking about Prosper, Texas as a place that could work. And then last, we expect that the first couple of years we won't be profitable. So we'll need funding just for operating expenses. That's it.
All right, thank you. We're going to try to keep the Q&A a little bit shorter because we're running out of time. I thought you guys did a great job. It makes a lot of sense. I'm surprised something like this doesn't already exist. I think there's a lot of ways to expand something like this. I'm a little bit worried about competition getting there way ahead of you. I mean, there are people who are already in this business. So that would be your biggest issue, I think, is the competition, and also getting the right team in terms of implementation as well as partners. Have you talked to any municipalities that are interested?
Nobody is necessarily interested.
Yeah, we talked to the Water Reclamation District executive director about Illinois and Evanston. They said Illinois is kind of like a interesting situation because a lot of different communities all should have like a combined sewer system that is being ran by the water reclamation district. So we wanted to like pitch the idea to individual municipalities, but in this case, if we wanted to do that, we have to go through the water reclamation district, convince them, then they will distribute it. So we're like, yeah, maybe not. And he also said like the issue for Illinois is that it's a structural issue. The pipes are just old and they need to fix the price if you even want to do anything else. So that's a little bit tough.
We tried to gauge though how like what market reception would be to this in a couple of different ways. So one thing we did was we just posted on the stormwater engineer subreddit. It's just like
the obvious place, right?
Does anybody make this? And people were like, no, not this exact thing. There are companies that make sensors to tell you if it's going to flood, but there's nobody that does a kind of sensor for preventative maintenance of your system. And then I have a couple stormwater engineering contacts from a prior job. And this was a problem we ran into frequently. They don't have these systems in Florida and South Carolina, which are very different markets than somewhere like the Chicago market, which was the guy we talked to last week. So I think it's going to be different geographically.
Oh, we're mentioning that
about pricing. We talked about no price and stuff. Okay. Yeah, that's your, I'm sorry, go ahead, Mark. Sorry.
your credentials about it being in this business would have helped them, give a little more credibility to your pitch because you were there, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I guess just on that point, I mean, I'm kind of thinking about how does this get funded? Right, where's the money coming from?
Ideally, your
question.
What's that? Ideally, your buying.
I mean, how does the customer pay for it?
I mean, I think what we thought about
where's the money come from?
Yeah, I mean, the way we thought about it is there's a yearly budget process for the municipality. Yeah. They allocate a certain amount of money to the stormwater department or the public works department, and so we come in and say we're a service provider for the public works department, and you spend X amount of money per year right now on staffing for just regular people to go out and like look at these systems. So we're going to cut your staffing costs. Because we can be proactive and tell you exactly where you need to go. You don't have to do manual inspections. It's more targeted. We can get ahead of flood events. And so just give us a portion of savings. So it's a headcount reduction for that.
Not necessarily a reduction if the communities keep expanding, which is why you target Dallas specifically.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want to cut because if you cut jobs, it's an elected position. It's going to career suicide. You can't do that for them.
The communities that I worked in, they all already had massive maintenance backlogs. So like I was working at the Panhandle in Florida for a long time, and they all had 30 to 50% backlogs. So they needed staff, and they couldn't get the staff at the rates that they were authorized to pay. And so it's not like we need to fire staff. It's hey, we're going to help make up some of the shortage by allowing you to more efficiently allocate to your existing staff. Yeah.
Get more projects done with the same staff.
Exactly.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Nice job. All right, hydrogen.
All right, guys.
Might have a chance.
It's ideas.
7-10 minutes, it's okay. Over class is on 11:45.
Raised a couple of
Is there anything in there that's perishable?
I go to Southern
All right, people, listen up. Hydrogen T6, take it away. 10 minutes.
Hello, everyone. We are HT6 professors. My name is Jonathan Karch.
Hi, I'm Sejal Vispu.
I'm Glad.
I'm Alex.
Okay. So our mission is to bring lower cost hydrogen compression into the world. With this, we hope to power a faster and smoother transition and the widespread eventual adoption of hydrogen fuels. Short introduction to the hydrogen ecosystem. The hydrogen industry is poised to grow exponentially from here to 2050, and the major driver of that growth will be transport. And during a lot of interviews and research, we concluded that the major use for hydrogen fuel will be in long distance trucking. It's a challenge today because there's not a lot of infrastructure in the form of fueling stations, and the cost of hydrogen fuel is expensive. We hope to remedy that through our technology. So the average cost of a hydrogen fueling station for electricity is $147,000 a year to run it. And 48% of that is the compressor. We're trying to bring cheap compressors into fueling stations and make hydrogen a possibility for the future. Maintenance is also the second highest contributor to running a fueling station, and our compressors require little to no maintenance. The hydrogen refueling station market is poised to grow a lot from here to 2030, as you can see. It has a 25% CAGR year on year. We are at an important inflection point for hydrogen.
Yeah, okay, so what we're trying to do is we're trying to get the technology from Sandia Labs, and we're trying to use it for this application. So how the metal hydrides work is when hydrogen is, when the hydrogen gets into the vessel with metal hydride, the metal hydride absorbs the hydrogen. And when the metal hydride vessel is heated, it releases hydrogen at high pressure. So we thought, why not use this for thermal compression instead of mechanical compression? So that's technology that we're using here. And the technology that we're getting from Sandia Labs have a machine learning algorithm. So they're able to make the metal hydride in such a way that you can have metal hydrides for different applications. So for this, we for thermal compression. And also the compressor, the cost that's involved with metal hydride compressors and the normal mechanical compressors is very low in the long run.
Yeah. As of now, fueling stations are using mechanical compression. It's very expensive to run. We're licensing this technology from Sandia, as Aditya said. It uses metal hydride. And the AI basically produces a much more efficient combination of the alloys that we can put into our compressors.
And also the bridgehead market, as you can see, fueling stations are predicted to grow, hydrogen fueling stations are predicted to grow from 60, that is now, to 400 and 4,300 by year 2030. And most of them are, well, all of them are actually located in California now, and that's where we're planning to start.
So our ask for the first year is $1.7 million. And so going to our techno-economic analysis, the initial cost of our compressor is going to be $549,999. So this is significantly higher than what you would be paying for if you're purchasing a mechanical compressor. But some of the things that we're bringing to the table are almost double the life cycle. So we anticipate that our compressors, because of the lack of oil, the lack of mechanical parts, they're going to be able to last you a very long time, up to 30 years, as opposed to 15 years, which is what the current state-of-the-art compressors would be offering. The other big advantage is because of the reduction in maintenance, you're going to have a much lower mean time between failures. So we see these compressors enabling refueling stations to be operating for very long periods of time, very low downtime. And the downtime is one of the key factors that is driving revenue loss. And when we looked at revenue loss, we looked at the lower end revenue loss, and we also looked at a higher end because, as refueling stations are introduced and they purchase our product now, they might have a few customers, but as we talked about the market growth, 5 years from now, that's going to look a lot more different. And then the third biggest thing that we've mentioned is optimization of the electrical use. So we're going to see a significant reduction in the electricity cost simply because these metal hydrides are optimized to take in ambient conditions and then be able to deliver that very high pressure hydrogen without needing a lot of electricity. So the break-even point for customers who are interested in this technology is going to be at the 2-year mark.
I just wanted to mention quickly, the technology currently is in TRL4, so the 1.7 million we need is to take it into TRL5 and go into the first year of sales.
Yep, so with the discussion that we've had prior, we believe that our product is positioned very uniquely to penetrate the market. In the US, there are no other metal hydride competitors that we are aware of. It is truly a mechanical compressor market. And we also believe that because this technology is going to be using AI to continually refresh and continually look at different combinations of chemistries and alloys, we're going to have a continuous market capture as we move forward.
All right, so the future and long-term goals. The first steps we're going to take after this is to run some interviews with some of the bigger refueling station companies in California with True Zero, Iwatani, and Air Products. And then some other future ventures that we're looking into after we delve into our refueling market would be steel mills. There's a lot of steel companies out there right now that are looking to switch towards green steel, such as Boston Metal. And then after that, potentially looking at air travel. There's some companies out there that are working on some hydrogen planes. Zero Avia is actually working on a H2 electric plane, and they would be in need of compression technologies at the refueling stations at the airports. So. And then some risks and challenges involved. Jonathan already mentioned that there is a lack of infrastructure, obviously. And there are also frequent shortages of gaseous hydrogen in California. I think there's actually one going on right now. There's also the fact that the cost of hydrogen doesn't just solely depend on us. There's also the cost of hydrogen transportation. So we'll have to, figure that out. And then metal hydride compression is kind of a newer field. And then there's also the risk that with the change in administration, some of the policies, subsidies could, go away, and that would obviously hurt part of our business model.
Any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you. What kind of margin do you get at $549,999?
It's not bad. We have it in the addendum. The appendix.
There you go. Wow. It's almost like I saw this coming.
We went into 2030 because that's when most of the refueling stations are going to pop up. We expect to have a loss the first year, but then we expect to do quite well. And the margin you asked for?
Yeah, the cost of the compressor material itself is around $200,000, and then we have these other costs in there. So that's why we chose $549,999.
With discount.
So is hydrogen the only gas that works in metal hydrides?
I don't think so. I can't say for sure, but I think there are others that could work. But it's hydrogen needs to be compressed a lot more than other gases. That's why it's very hard to transport. And the hydrides do it very well. And it also filters out any impurities, so it's very effective.
Yeah, because I'm just, the hydrogen fueling infrastructure, that's years away. So are there nearer term applications, right? So if you look at UMAT is a great example, which came out of, were they a Nuvention company or not?
They came out of Northwestern, but not Nuvention.
Yeah.
And then came through Nuvention, but not doing UMAT.
Okay, but they identified beachhead market, one of their initial beachhead markets, sort of industrial gases for semiconductor manufacturing, right? And they've had a great run rate business in that, and now they're branching out into other sort of tuning their MOFs for other types of applications. So just it's worth looking at whether those metal hydrides, can be, are there other applications that are nearer term that we can really apply the technology?
And good point. That was, for us, that was kind of the steel mills. That was another one we were looking at. Because with the steel mills, you can also, there's other competitive advantages as well. You have waste heat in the factories that you can use that lowers costs. And there are lots of companies or lots of steel mills that are looking to transition to green steel.
During our interviews, we also spoke to one of the engineers at Apple in San Francisco, and they use metal hydrides for nothing related to actually like hydrogen storage, but they use it for creating like anti-corrosion coatings. So that could potentially be an interesting application we could look into.
Hydrogen hydrogen they use for metal hydride. It's difficult to break that bond of hydrogen. So that's why they use it for hydrogen storage and hydrogen combustion. So I spoke to some people who work for Linde. He told me that they're not able to use the electrical battery packs for these plug-in companies because you need huge, big batteries for that application. So they're looking at hydrogen fuel cells as an alternative. And hydrogen is pretty good in that market because it takes less space and you're able to store a lot of hydrogen. But when you look at batteries, it's the other way around. You need big battery packs to give the same energy. And that's why it's not coming in the cars and the small vehicles, but it's coming in the vehicles.
There was another question here.
Yeah. So the technology is interesting, but to me, it feels like the technology is in the middle of like a supply and a demand chicken and egg. It says that a fueling station could accommodate a hydrogen fueling economy for long haul trucking, right? But that both the charging infrastructure doesn't exist for that right now, and we have hydrogen shortages as well. So I know we looked at like statistics on the front end that says hydrogen will become more important from a transportation perspective, but is your technology palatable to a fueling station if the demand from the trucking sector doesn't seem to exist right now? Do you know what I mean?
Yes, we spoke to the CEO of a hydrogen trucking company. He expected the U.S. in general to adopt it by 2030 and California by 2027. I think it's a bit ambitious. It could be. It would wane demand a bit, but in California there are light vehicles that use hydrogen, so there are other uses, but it would definitely affect us.
Related question: can any fueling station have does anybody have the infrastructure to become a hydrogen fueling station, or like could a BP down the street put a hydrogen compressor onto their lot, or do you have to build new infrastructure, build new stations?
I'd have to get back to you on that one, but I believe they could. The technology we're trying to license is actually in part paid by Chevron, so I'm thinking they could.
Is Toyota in this business in California? I believe, is that correct? They have a car.
Yeah, the Mariah.
Yeah, and it's been around for a long time, and there's been no expansion because of the infrastructure side. So you're kind of the chicken and egg thing you talked about. Is there something to gain from talking to Toyota and seeing why they haven't been able to move out of California?
Oh, possibly, and definitely, like we said, we believe it's an inflection point for hydrogen right now.
Mm-hmm.
So we could grab this wave going forward and surf it. Say it that way. But we should talk to them.
Their refueling times aren't that much better than EV charging. So I think there's a lot of issues to solve, but obviously this is going after one very specific and expensive issue. So I applaud you. Where's the licensing fee, and where does Sandia stand on licensing to students and working with you guys? Have they seen this at all? Or?
Yes, a little bit. So the first license we're trying to get is a license to experiment with the technology to see if we can bring it up to tier L5. I believe that was around $35,000. And then after that, we'd have to consider the next license, either just general use or more of a not exclusive, but exclusive-ish use.
A specific application.
Just minor thing, okay? Great job, first of all. But administration fee being higher than sales and marketing bugs me, okay? Because you're a manufacturing company of a compressor.
Oh, that's just our first year.
No, it is all the way through.
It's very similar to the sales and marketing.
It becomes $14 million.
Yeah.
2030.
We took
yourself very well.
To be honest, it is salary, but we took general percentages of manufacturing companies.
You sure?
Yeah.
We'll have to trust them on that.
Yeah, a few points. So one of the really nice things about metal hydrides is the safety. And I would think one of the things that you might want to look into is not just the fueling stations, but also, some of the steel mills or smaller industrial pilots where safety and footprint can be a consideration, because you also it's smaller than having to have a bunch of hydrogen storage tanks. And the other thing I wanted to put on your radar is the head of hydrogen for DOE, Dr. Sunita Satyapal, announced today a new funding announcement for hydrogen storage, safety, and fueling stations. So if you guys are interested, that's very timely and applicable to what you're looking at.
Thank you.
Thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you.
I think the serendipity is telling you to go that direction.
I think Chicago was also named as some sort of hydrogen hub, right?
Yeah.
One of
Just recently, right? The last few weeks.
Great job.
Thank you. Nice job. Okay, we're going to close the session with Bolt Sensa. Last but not least.
Can you resave and resave?
No.
Oh, that's great.
You're gonna like that Sensa. I like it.
Very happy.
Transforming the.
All right, we are last and we are pushing up on time. We'll take our time here now.
But not least, don't worry.
Not least, all right, well, that's good.
Don't feel rushed. Take your 10 minutes.
All right.
No more.
Sit up. We'll take a beat.
Mark already started the clock, so if you
All right.
We started 2 minutes ago.
So, Bolt Sensa, transform the grid. That's the slogan here. We think it's clever. Okay, I was gonna make a comment, but let's dive in. No, it's fine. So, a little bit about me. In this project, we're gonna present it a little bit differently than the last several projects. I came into this with the idea a little bit, and so the team has really been incredible in kind of helping me flesh out a business plan here, a business case. And so I'm coming into this as a solo founder with the focus on building analytic solutions to help utilities with distribution grid resiliency and reliability. And really the effort is to help with this, enable the global energy transition. So my background, I did some client service consulting at a company called Sequoia Consulting Group. It was healthcare, totally different. However, that experience is super informative when it comes to product management. And when I was at PG&E the last year and a half, I really got a chance to dive into a technical product management role where I was deploying utility scale distribution grid analytic solutions. So that's a little bit about me. So let's jump into the team.
Yeah, so we've supported Charles in this past quarter. So we have Rose, who's a mechanical engineer with 5 years of experience in the oil and gas industry. Panos, who's a marine engineer with 5 years in project management roles. Myself, Eric, I'm a mechanical engineer with 5 years in designing and developing DoD defense technologies. And then we have Annabella, who has an IoT degree and has been working recently with Sandia in developing sustainable devices.
So we're gonna go over the interviews. So far from the interviews that we have conducted, they mainly focus on the transformers health, as far as like just using whatever insight or data to improve the grid. As of recently, we have spoke to Sandia and they are willing to collaborate with us and provide funding. So that's honestly amazing.
That's great.
So that,
Inside track.
Yeah.
It's still in the works, but as far as like right now, we are still trying to meet with them. Probably like in mid-December, we'll have some sort of confirmation, and I will CC you on it.
Thank you.
And I guess from like the bars that you do see there, it's like one of the top 100 utilities, and it has allocated around $2 billion.
The grant funding for reliability and resiliency is huge. I think a lot of us know about it here. Covered it a bit, but
Oh,
so.
5 minute mark.
Yeah.
Not taking up your time.
Our research and experience with map current solutions for distribution, grid asset health management, and predictive maintenance. And we found out that concerned firms are working with individual entities inside the utilities to solve this issue, and these substation deployment companies are also working. But right now, the information is siloed, and mainly the solutions that consulting firms are providing are more like vitamin, and they're not differentiated.
So at present, the internal teams within the utilities and the information they hold are working in silos. So our platform will integrate all those together. So with our platform will enter their operational efficiency and facilitate collaboration.
all right, and we'll spend a lot of time on these last, or I guess try to spend a bit of time here on the last 5 slides. Those last 2 slides we thought were kind of cheeky. It's a mess the way it currently is, and now we're going to solve all of it. But in reality, it is difficult to do this. So we want to help utility electric ops teams, asset failure teams, supply chain planning teams. We want to help them integrate better, collaborate better, and create efficiencies. One way to do it, upgrading asset mapping is a hugely important piece to getting started on any type of predictive analytics work at probably any utility at this point. Most utilities, there's a lot of work to do there. That's really the focus of the research pilot we're pursuing with ComEd, which we've had a lot of conversations about, which is actually where Sandia has come in. And so there's some action around that, which is exciting. Really after that, however, in these initial phases, creating a predictive layer with machine learning models and existing open research is the goal. And then having some tooling built on top of that, layered on top of that. So we built a business entity in this time frame to be accepted into Foundry for Builders cohort. It's Palantir's program for founders. And I got some type of signal over there. Oh, 5 minutes. Okay, I can't see it. And so we may blow past a little. No, I'm kidding. So anyway, no, and so it's a big step in the right direction. It's a way for us to integrate processes and ideas with a utility. So we'll see how that turns out. So a lot of benefits here. We can go into the next slide and kind of circle back in Q&A. But how we plan for it to work really is we want to look at it. The vision for this is create some data connections, secure data connection, have different teams from different parts of the organization, which are typically siloed, come in and work cross-functionally on a data platform, on a data science operations platform. It's hard to do for this type of predictive maintenance modeling, for this type of asset health monitoring. And it's currently being done well in some places and not so well in other places. So it's really something I want to explore further, see where those opportunities are. The operational integration was key, and then tracking and reporting, being able to automate that would be a big part of this user experience. And then here's a kind of a rough look at a roadmap, a business roadmap. From our perspective, a pilot is super important here. Proving the research, the open research, that it is better, that is a percentage better than an existing framework that people are using is very important. I think a general kind of rule of thumb for me in energy is it has to be a proven technology to get implemented. And so commercializing some of these open research projects, whether it's line rating optimization models or it's distribution transform models, is pretty difficult to aggregate. However, that's really a goal for this project. We're thinking pretty aggressively that we'd get a client by end of year 2. End of year 3, we'd have a couple clients, and then so on. There's a lot of things have to go right for all this to happen. However, this is actually a pathway to sustainable revenues. And then there are so many risks, so many risks. Yeah, I mean, so this is a Rome board, resolved, owned, accepted, and mitigated kind of risk analysis. And looking at it, there's some, at least from the pilot side of things, some resolved here. We're starting to integrate. We've integrated with the entrepreneurship ecosystem, this included, right? We're drafting business plans. We're getting feedback from the industry. We understand some of the customer dilemma. We're trying to launch a research pilot. That's part of the own risk here. We're working on getting data access. These things are directionally moving very well. And then on a couple highlights on the accepted risk is there's competition. I mean, we're competing with internal analytics teams. There's a bunch of consulting firms. There's other firms trying to do this. So it's a matter of execution. And you can see we're pretty much all yellow and orange. So a lot of these would have to get mitigated for us to make real progress here. And so funding. So the base case for this, so we'll start with the pilot funding. We're thinking the pilot funding is just a couple of researchers or a few researchers. The funding we would need would mainly be for computational costs to launch a pilot and prove some of these concepts. And so $25,000 a month over 6 months, 150,000, and then beyond it gets pretty costly. You know, if we did do a beta test with the utility, we're in the red for a while before it gets to a profitable place. So by end of year 5, we can get to a profitable place based on the current assumptions we're using, and then by end of 10 years, you could be at a run rate that is actually looking at acquisition. So that's the sum of what we've done, and thank you for listening.
These IoT devices exist, or do you have to design them?
Yeah, so we'll be leveraging AMI data for our concept. It's all non-contact technology, non-grade contact technology that we'd want to develop. So yeah, it would just be looking at AMI smart meter data specifically and cleaning that up and rolling that up through the distribution.
Do you have anything protectable here? Any kind of IP at all?
Nothing. I mean, that's the thing. So the research pilot's important because in order for that to work, part of it is that we would get to co-own IP, whoever we develop it with. And so that the IP is really in aggregating the right models and then scaling it in the tooling. So it's really an aggregation method rather than creating brand new technology. And on the machine learning side, there's IP, the features used, the type of models that you use, things like that. But that also can be replicated, guesstimated by a good data scientist, some good data scientists.
Thank you.
There you go.
Any other questions?
Any other questions?
So quick elevator pitch, value prop for the utility.
Quick elevator pitch. The value prop. A lot of utilities, some utilities spend millions of dollars in outage claims a year to different customers. Reducing that by 10%. Say ComEd, they spend $4 million a year. That was how much they spent in outage claims from 2000 to 2012, pretty much. That alone, that's $400,000 a year if you can resolve 10% of those outages ahead of time. That's $400,000 a year. That can justify a SaaS product. They're paying equivalent costs. We're paying more than that for consulting services that create similar products to this, and they're not sustainable. And so those are non-siloed operations that, over time, kind of will just keep the status quo, hard to scale.
Not a bad pitch, a little longer than 30 seconds.
All right, any other questions? Otherwise, thank you guys. Nice job. All right. leave, we have food waiting for us next door. I want to thank all of our advisors once again. Why don't we give them one last round of applause? All of our guests of honor. I know you come from Nuvention Medical. Any ideas? Any feedback?
It's always fantastic to be here and see what you guys do in 10 weeks. It's amazing. Nuvention Medical is 2 quarters, and in 1 quarter you guys come through, and it's always impressive to see what you come up with.
We put enormous pressure on these people, and it seems to work. So, but that's my hint to you.
Slave driver.
Slave driver. There you go. All right. Thank you all. Have a good feast next door, and I will be grading your papers soon. Have a good break.
Always
Thanks,
very
Mark.
much appreciated.
Take care. It's fun to see it. What is it?
I mean, the doors are